Just give us a 3-2-1.
3-2-1.
Oh yeah.
Hey everybody, Roar the Lions UK. It is our awards show, so thank you very much for joining us. We're just chatting here while I get set up. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Looking forward to this.
Bathing in the tears of the Dallas Cowboys. What more would you want on a Monday?
An announcement that Aaron Rodgers is retired.
No, because no, we don't want that. We want him to stay in Green Bay so he collects his absurdly big wage and screws the cap for the next few years.
Touche.
So we don't want him to retire. Retirement's the cheap option.
So what do we want? I don't want him to
Do
stay.
we really want?
Can we get them to have a really bad trade for him? Aaron Rodgers for a second-round pick or something?
No, Aaron Rodgers and picks to get his contract off the books.
Ooh.
So they have to give up draft capital to get rid of him.
Now we're talking.
That could be fun.
Right, I'm just downloading this graphic now. I think. Hopefully. Oh, have you had a good week, folks? It's been a little while since I've seen you.
No, my car broke. That's not good.
It's not good.
That's the kind of positivity we wanted. I love it.
It is. It's broken like me. It represents me at this current moment in time. Worn down, unloved, and broken. So here we go. Symbolism.
I'm great. I've got a new ring light, like a TikToker. You can see me in full HD. Like the viewers, I've got everything they always wanted. I must look so good right now.
It's disgraceful. We might have to cover you from the rest of the screen, otherwise it's going to get distracting.
Send him a mask or something.
We got a question from Dan just while we're toing and froing here. He said, "Do you guys think there are any good head coaching vacancies at the moment? Not candidates, but places."
No.
Give the Cowboys about 2 days, then maybe.
Oh.
Oh come on! They're not going to keep him after this.
Yes,
Jerry looked like he wanted to launch someone out the stadium the other day.
Did you
when they
see
got
that
beaten.
he lashed out at the cameraman, pushed the camera?
Yeah, that's what I mean. He looked like he wanted to drop kick someone, over the fucking border. That's how angry he looked. I mean, they're just.
So what you guys are hearing now, maybe for the first time, is my little thing telling us that Danny, You'll Never Walk Alone, Justice for the 96, has subscribed with Twitch Prime. It's his 6th month. So whenever that happens and I go, ooh, in my ear, and you can't hear it, well, now you can. And Danny, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you.
So yeah, be nice about Liverpool next time you mention them.
No, we don't.
No. Oh, you're so mean.
You're a Chelsea fan, Everton fan, Liverpool fan, anyone like.
There's nothing more satisfying than seeing the demise of Everton, is there not? It's just like they've been there for years. They always think that, I don't know, the fan base always think they're much better than they're meant to be, and it's nice to see them finally on the verge of getting relegated. The Premier League will be much better off without them.
I was saying to people in Liverpool, it didn't go down well while we were there, that given the propensity for clubs to go down one division and then go down another one because their players aren't suited for it, it's going to be a lovely stadium in League One when it opens.
Oh yeah, the new one.
Yeah.
It looks absolutely gorgeous, by the way. As a Liverpool fan, walking back to the city from Anfield and seeing that on the skyline, I mean, it's going to be something really special. But it's just a shame that they've got no fans and
they fired Frank today as well, didn't they? Which is disappointing.
Yeah.
We just gotta hope they don't go on that interim manager run when they start winning loads of games.
We'll see. It might happen, it might not. In terms of where's good, I still really like Carolina. I still really think that's going to be a good job for someone. I think that's a roster ready to go.
No, they're in a let's face it, an absolutely atrocious division. So a conference, which is easy to win. That's probably why it's more appealing, let's say. I don't know. I don't think the roster's any more advanced than some of the others are. The potential to be a very good team, but they've got to pay all that defense soon. We're going to cost them a lot of money. Still need to find a quarterback.
I think Arizona is probably the most sound. Even though I don't like Kyler Murray, he's a little brat, and DeAndre Hopkins is a big fucking baby that's going to be traded. He's still seems to work with there.
And that new GM seems a bit suspicious at the minute. I'll have no egos on Mighty. Well, you're never going to win anything then. Teams are based on it.
Right, before we start, folks, can I check that you guys know which awards you are announcing?
So, has someone changed the winner of the one I'm doing? Because I hadn't seen it.
Actually, the winners have changed, but the very first one you're doing, that is now the game that you went to see, which I think is one that you voted for, and then Defensive Player of the Year, which you're doing, is also that hasn't changed.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
The other ones that split ties, Ash is announcing Comeback Player of the Year, and you know who that is, yes, Ash?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. It's inspiring confidence. And you voted for the most improved one already, so that's good.
I've got the planning doc up somewhere.
Yeah.
So I've got.
Right, I'm going to post the planning doc again in the chats so you guys can see.
I feel like before we start this, I'm under pressure to go dress up like a divorced 40-year-old teacher.
Steve,
there's a lot of you who've got that attire going there.
Not you, Tom.
Not you, Tom. You look fantastic.
Well, I don't know about that. Is this a bit of a rebrand of the In-Betweeners? I'm getting some serious vibes of that right now.
Oh, yes.
Tom looks like he carries a suit, like a briefcase.
If only I had some glasses, it'd be good to go right now.
Briefcase wanker.
Shut up, Simon.
Oh, dear. Drew just said only 13 awards. Excellent.
14 into 14?
13.
Oh, 13.
We have 16.
Yeah, we have 15 and we cut it down by 2.
We could stretch 3 out to a long show, so yeah.
And we're going to have a little bit of news to chat on as well first. So, right, Ash, are you gone or are you still here?
I'm still here. I'm just trying to sort out the psychedelic effect my camera's making.
That's cool. I just wanted to make sure. You guys all ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 176. And the winner is, my name's Matthew Turner, alongside co-host and Ryan, Steve, Tom, and who have I forgotten? And Ryan. I don't know. Ash. Did I forget Ash? Oh,
yeah,
dear.
so.
It's a good start, everyone.
A slick start.
Excuse us, folks. How are you doing, folks? It's been a week. It feels like a long time.
Those school teachers were meant to have good memories.
Oh.
You're meant to know your classroom, all the names of the children in your classroom, so.
I must have skipped someone. I went round the blooming boxes and I must have just missed someone. Sorry.
It's probably me because the camera.
Yeah, my bad, guys. Good week.
I think in terms of like football, I just keep thinking the Lions would absolutely massacre some of these playoff teams. The quality has not been good. We would absolutely be holding our own. And we'd certainly do better than the Cowboys last night.
I've really enjoyed these games for the most part over this week. I mean, the Bills game was good. It was so good to see them get their arse handed to them, like the frauds they are. I think the best 4 teams are left, in my view. There is no one in this Final 4 who shouldn't be there. They've all earned the right to be there, and I think it's going to be a cracking pair of championship games. But I think overall the standard's has been pretty good.
I think it's as excited for a conference championship weekend I've been in ages, because you look at the odds and it's basically everyone has the same odds to win the Super Bowl. And quite often you get to this and there's one good game and one shaky game, or, the Patriots are going to get there, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, good weekend coming up.
And you've got two very different clash of styles. Like the AFC game is going to be two great passing sides going at it with one another, and then the NFC is going to be two big smash mouth sides going at it with one another. It's going to be really interesting to see how those go out, but two different dynamics for both games.
Yeah, it's been a really exciting playoffs. Some of the teams, as you guys have said, have not really lived up to it. Steve, I think you hit the nail on the head. We would absolutely compete with these guys. No doubt in my mind that we'd be giving people a better run for their money. I'm not sure that we do any better than Dallas did against San Francisco, but that's only because that team is damn good. But I mean, we beat both the Giants and the Vikings, so you know we could have hanged with some of these guys.
Yeah, I think the first half of the Bills-Bengals game was probably the best football of the weekend. That was awesome, like absolutely toe-to-toe. And then the kind of Bills faded away. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's as divisional games go, if you could have picked 4 teams, like these were the 4.
I'd just like to say, I did pick a 49ers Bengals Super Bowl, and I was laughed at. So, you know, that's a good chance that's going to happen at this point.
Wait, when? At the start of the season?
No, at the start. Before the playoffs, like week 15, 16, when we were discussing
like 2 weeks ago,
good.
basically 2 weeks ago.
This was not clairvoyance from the start of the season, but near the end of the season when the playoffs are shaping up, I always thought the Bengals look good out of everyone, and you know, I think they do. They just look one of the best teams at the minute, and so do the 49ers. Still think of that. I think that'll be the Super Bowl.
Just going to go through our preamble as normal. We've got a Discord channel running and a lovely community of people. Come and join us there. I'll pop a link in the chat in just a moment. College Football Podcast, boys. You've been on the Senior Bowl for a while, and I think it starts next week.
Yeah, we didn't do a show last week, which is on me because it's a lot of prep work. I've got my laptop here still doing work for this week's show, so that's how to get onto it. But it's the defensive roster we're doing this week. We did the offensive one a couple of weeks ago, but loads of intriguing prospects on the defense here, so I've had to do a bit more work on them. But yeah, that'll be back on Wednesday.
Please don't forget to like the video, sub to the podcast, rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff that you know really helps content creators like us out, especially small ones. It makes a massive difference to us. Go ahead and download the app at lionsnationunite.com as well. We're a member there, as well as Dose of Dion and Micro Mike and Lions on the Prowl. You can find all your favorite Lions content creators there. We are a Twitch affiliate. If, like Danny, just before the show, you have a Twitch Prime subscription going spare, if you could chuck it our way, it really makes a difference. There's also a feedback form for the show in the description below. Please do let us know what you think about the show and anything that you think we can improve, or any topic ideas as we go into the off-season. That'd be really good. And there's also tip jars down there if you've got a spare few bucks that you can throw our way. Let's crack on with the news. And the first big one, which actually happened a day after our last show, but let's chat on it for just a moment. Ben Johnson, it really looked like he was on his way, favourite for one job and second favourite for another. They don't come every day, these head coaching opportunities, and instead, in return for what's meant to be a fairly sizable pay rise, Ben Johnson is returning, boys. And I know that we all said that we weren't really scared of it, but there must have been a little trepidation about moving over to a new offense, maybe a new verbiage, that sort of thing. It really does mean that this offense should pretty smoothly walk into 2023, hopefully picking up where they left off.
I think it's the right call for everybody involved. I mean, obviously, first of all, it's great for the team that its staff want to stay here and do the job going forward. You know, he feels that it's not done yet, but I was saying this last week, it makes sense for everyone that he stays here another year for the team. Obviously, it's a second year under him. You don't have to mess with the offense. You can just carry on building, carry on the momentum into next year. Obviously, for Jared Goff, it keeps him with the same play caller, keeps all that together. I think for Ben Johnson himself as well, I think he's quite a smart guy. I think he realizes that, you know, he's had 1 year as an offensive coordinator, but still nothing done in the postseason yet. Not down on him, but I mean, this year is an opportunity for him to show that he can build an offense that can go all the way and do the job, and that'll raise your stock going forward. Because I mean, if he did take a job this year and he didn't do very well, then what's it going to look like when he gets fired out his first job? He's got 1 year as an offensive coordinator, not really done much in terms of postseason stuff, etc., and he's been fired from a head coach job. It could be a very long time before you get another shot again. Whereas if you carry on developing your trade, carry on getting better at what you're doing, you set yourself up for success longer term with it. So for him, you know, he can carry on learning, carry on building, whilst the team benefits from it as well. So I think he's made a very smart decision here, and of course for us, we're all delighted, really, aren't we? So, you know, great move from him, great show of confidence in this team and its leadership, and you know, great for Ben as well. Can carry on raising his stock, and he'll almost certainly get a job next year if he carries on doing what he's doing.
I think for the fans' point of view, we just don't want to see like the disruption that a change could cause. Like the offense has been, you know, really on a roll. There's great momentum. I think we're probably going to keep the majority of the offensive roster together. Yeah, there will be some changes, but I think largely the majority of the players will be brought back. And I think the last thing that we needed was to lose Johnson and kind of, you know, then have the going into camp and going into the start of the season when the focus really has to be on the defense over the summer period, like in terms of, you know, changes to the defense, absolutely rebuilding that roster. We just don't need, you know, anything problematic on the offense because we really want to hit the ground running, and we don't know what the defense is going to be like for the first few weeks of the season. So I think absolutely this is a fantastic boost for the whole franchise.
For me personally, I feel the quality of vacancy right now is piss poor. Apart from Carolina, apart from Arizona, I feel like there's jobs out there. Just don't want them. Houston Texans, like, they're rancid. Franchise is just full of twits. If he'd have gone there, like, I'd think he's a fool. But yeah, he had the ties to Carolina, being a UNC guy. For me, I think they've got that stigma about them, like say now they're going through head coaches. Getting rid of Steve Wilkes, like I say, is a huge mistake in general. For me, that's a big red flag about franchises when they get rid of a guy that can win over a locker room and then make him try win his own job back. So I agree that next year, I think if he gets a better crop, then we'll be resigned to seeing him leave. But it's great. I'd like to know if this offense is more him or more Goff. We can't really know that while they're both here. Like I say, if Ben Johnson leaves and Goff falls off a cliff, we know what we know about him. But if Goff's then balls out, we know that he's finally takes some ownership. So yeah, a bit of stability right now is good. Like I say, a lot of the staff probably have had looks, had the odd text, had the odd chat. But yeah, it's good to see that finally someone wants Lions staff. Of the two coordinators, I'm more bothered about losing Ben. I don't care if Glenn goes. I've got no attachment to Glenn. I'm just not a Glenn guy. I never have been. So I'm not bothered if he leaves. But it's good to see Ben come back. He's one of the hot young names in the carousel. I'm sure he'll be back next year. Guys like Carolina, they need someone like Caldwell. I think they need an experienced head. Like I said, I don't think Ben Johnson really offers what they need right now.
We'd probably be remiss not to mention Sheila as well. I know we haven't got an award for owner of the year, but yeah, impressive to go and actually stump up some extra cash to bring him back, because whilst those contract details won't be shared, I'm sure it's not insignificant, the raise he's been given. So yeah, brand new Lions.
Especially given the reputation. Sorry.
Hopefully that was the money that Will Harris isn't getting, or our money.
No, it's the money that we've just stopped paying Matt Patricia. It can finally go to a good cause.
It's just like with the Ford's reputation for not dipping their hand in their pocket. It's another data point since Sheila's taken the mantle as principal owner that she is willing to do what it takes to make us successful, be on the fan side or the coaching side or the player side. So exciting times. And you spoke, Ryan, about Aaron Glenn, and he's obviously been interviewed in person by Arizona. Ash, any thoughts on Aaron Glenn being interviewed?
I agree with like you all that it might be slightly concerning, but it seems it might be like last year where he got a lot of interviews, and to not be too suspicious of people, but it seems he's a Rooney Rule kind of interview at this point where he's only there to make up the numbers and to make them look good. I know Carolina's got in trouble for not doing it, but I would have thought if there's any team that would interview Glenn and have an serious interest in him this year, it would be Houston, considering he used to play there. So it just seems that the Cardinals are, because they were a bit late to the head coaching carousel hire, just grabbing any people they can and interviewing them. They haven't really got a set out process like other teams have. Like Broncos, I know supposedly their owner today has come out and said, right, we've done all our first round of interviews. We're going to start narrowing it down now. So it's not really a concern to me.
Any other thoughts on Aaron Glenn, boys?
If I'm being completely honest, I don't see the hype. Defense hasn't gone much better. In my personal honest, like I say, parts of it got better, but still parts of it. All our biggest needs are there. So for me, I just don't get the Aaron Glenn love. If he wants to leave, fine, good riddance. We'll just promote Kelvin Shepherd or something like that. His heir apparent is already here, so I don't care if AG leaves, to be honest.
Yeah, he needs another year. But unlike Ben, it's Ben. It's good to have another year to show that you can consistently be good. For Aaron, he needs another year to show that he can just be good. Like Ryan says, the defense has struggled. I mean, you do look at the way individually all the guys have gotten better, which is a big plus point. But there's more to being a head coach than that. You've got to show that you can create a unit and that you can get it playing good football. And it got better down the stretch. It got a lot better. So if you carry that momentum onto next year, you get a few more high draft picks, maybe get some good free agents in to help come and sort things out as well, then maybe this time next year we'll be talking seriously about him and getting it. But I think right now, like Ryan says, the body of work is not there to support a head coach push, I don't think, at this moment in time. It still feels like he's working out a lot as DC, and he'll need to work that out first before he makes a move up anywhere.
I think AG turned a corner. I really, really do. I think that if you have a look at the overall stats for this year, they're poor. And they deserve to be poor because the start to the year was one of the worst defenses the league has ever seen. Like, it was not good. And when someone's head was on the chopping block, when it came to AP going, AG's head was very much there. And the fact that he survived that was surprising to me at the time. And I think since AP went, the defense started becoming better than the worst of all time. And by the end of the season, I do think that it was performing like a top 10 defense. I mean, the advanced metrics will tell you that that's the case, whether you believe it or not with the eye test or what have you. But we'll come on to some games that happened down the stretch where I really do think the defense won us those games. So I think there's a lot of evidence to say that the AG has had bad times here. But the most recent evidence we have, I think, would say that he is learning, and I expect big things from him next year. I hope he stays so he can demonstrate whether that's true or not. But if he doesn't do it next year, he'll be gone, never mind going for head coaching opportunities. So it's a real boom or bust year for him, I think. All right. Couple of other bits of news to get on to. The Lions have lost the college scouting director Dave Sears to Arizona, so he could be joining back up with Aaron Glenn if he gets the job. He's going there as assistant general manager. He's been with the Lions since 2007, so he's been here for a long time, and it's sad to see him go, especially with how we've drafted in the last couple of years. And finally, the Lions' defensive assistant coach, Sean Dion Hamilton, obviously a former player here, is going to be coaching the Senior Bowl DBs. Good, I guess, that we're going to get some advanced feedback, boys. Never mind ourselves, but one of our own coaches is going to be there.
And obviously with Devon Witherspoon hopefully being there, that could be really, really valuable.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Any more thoughts about news? No. All right, let's crack on. We are going to move on to the third annual Roar the Lions Awards show. This is where we celebrate the absolute best in Detroit Lions for 2022-23. It's a big party, and I hope you'll join it with us as we have a look at how it started and how it went through and how it ended by giving away some awards to our best and brightest. And just to have a quick look back at the season, I've got a little video for you now. just got together a little while ago. It was not great, but it's a little look back at what has happened. And we're going to celebrate the start of this by going to our Game of the Year. And to hand out the award for Game of the Year is our own Ryan McCluskey, who's sorting out his microphone at the moment. Are you there, Ryan?
Yep, I'm here.
Award for Game of the Year to you, sir.
Yep, Game of the Year. There was plenty of good nominations through the second half of the year. The Lions started slowly down the schedule, started 1-6, but then rattled off wins at the end of the year. Some great contenders. I'd say whooping the Jags, who would then go on to make a great postseason run. Going into MetLife against a really good Giants team when Saquon was leading the league in rushing. There was opening that kind of whoop ass on the Bears, really grinding them down, and then being party poopers, upsetting the Green Bay Packers at the end of the year when everything was on the line for them, and putting a halt to their cake and confetti party and making Aaron Rodgers look like the crack pipe smoking alleyway haircut tramp he is. Yeah, so this was my favourite award. So can I go ahead with the winner? So, the winner of and the winner of the award for Game of the Year is the Lions going into New York and beating the Giants at the MetLife Stadium. The Giants, I believe, were 7-2 at the time. They had the top running back in the nation, having a comeback year. They went there. They held him to 1.5 yards a carry. Saquon Barkley got multiple turnovers and Daniel Jones and cruised to a victory, scoring nearly 40 points on the day. And I was personally there as well to see it. So for me, it meant a lot more to me as well. But yeah, it was a fantastic game, and it really showed that we belong with the upper echelons of the NFC.
Thoughts, boys, on Game of the Year? I'm slightly surprised, but it was a heck of a game.
No knock to that game at all, but I'm amazed this wasn't a landslide for the Packers game.
See, I will fully admit I voted for this one, and for me, it's the same with everything. The beginning is the most important thing for any team when it's developing and going forward. I always said last year that the Amon-Ra St. Brown catch against Minnesota when we won our first game we'll look back on in a few years as the moment when everything turned around for Dan Campbell. Well, this win over the Giants for me represented sort of the turnaround for this team. We'd won a few games, but everything was still a little bit tentative. We'd only just come back and beaten the Bears, who were a really bad team, and we had the EBGBs, the jitters. To go into where the Giants were, I think they were a 7-win team at the time. They'd won a lot. They were going into the playoffs. For us to go away from home and put down the sheer beating that we did on them, that was the first step of this team's sort of evolvement into a team that it can be a competitor. All the wins after that, the Jags game, the Packers game, I don't think they happen if you don't go to MetLife and drop a whooping on someone, because it proves to your players that you can do it. Like I said, they've won a couple, but you need to win one in that dominant fashion. And the way we went there, everyone said, oh, Saquon's going to destroy you. We kept him quiet. We dominated the trenches against a team who's invested a lot in them. And for me, that is nothing else happens after that if you don't win that one. So for me, it's very symbolic and significant. That's why I voted for it.
It was the game where Ali McNeil really came out of his shell as well. So having had a completely solid but maybe unspectacular first half of the season, he was an absolute monster. And he really carried that on the rest of the season. And to your point, that's where defensively, especially on that line, we really stopped becoming a sieve. And that carried through, Panthers game aside, that carried through the rest of the season. So it definitely meant a lot to the rest of the season in terms of our overall performance. And it was quite a fun one to watch as well.
Any more thoughts on Game of the Year, boys?
Yeah, absolutely agree with Ant. You do need to start somewhere. It is all about the kind of genesis and your starting point. And this did feel really important. But I have to say I voted for the Packers game because ending Rodgers at Lambeau with everyone picking against the Lions, for me, that was beautiful.
For myself, I actually picked the Jags game. And, I mean, part of that is in hindsight because of what they ended up doing for the rest of this season. But part of it was, and I buy Ant's argument about the Giants game proving you can do it and it's not going to happen without it. But when we beat the Giants, I thought this could be a flash in the pan. When the Jags game happened, we dominated from start to finish. We didn't punt once. We never looked flustered. We were always in control of that game. It was the first time, maybe in 5 years, that I thought, no, actually, this team might be good. That was the game for me that cemented the fact that the Lions could be a good team, despite what happened earlier on in the year. So for me, that was a turning point in my own mentality, I think. All right, our thanks to Pride of Detroit, who've come in saying, what dapper gentlemen, and subscribe at tier 1 for their 7th month. Cheers, Jeremy and Chris and the guys over there. Obviously, I don't know if you guys have seen much of POD and Jeremy's tweets recently, but SB Nation and associated organizations have been going through a tough time at the moment. Fortunately, POD have escaped for the moment scot-free, which is great, but other Detroit-based organizations have not been so lucky. And just to extend thoughts out to those guys who may be losing their jobs, which is obviously crap. You guys do an amazing job for the city, and we wish you nothing but success. And you know, regard you guys as friends. Most of you have been on here, so you know, hopefully your employers see fit to do right by everyone there. Let's move on to our next award, which is going to be presented by Stephen Collins for Play of the Year.
Yeah, so some absolute fantastic nominations for this. And, you know, it's been for long-suffering Lions fans, this has been a cathartic season with so much positive to take out of it. And there were some absolutely cracking plays. You know, seeing Jameson Williams get his first touchdown after coming back from injury. Jeff Okudah, again, huge story of his struggles and picking off Justin Fields. Against Chicago was just a beautiful, and obviously we've just talking about the Packers game. Kirby Joseph taking down Aaron Rodgers in spectacular style. Aaron Glenn dancing up the sideline, just fantastic moment. But for me, and this is the one I voted for, like this was the play that absolutely warmed every bit of me, and was just like a massive adrenaline surge. So let me set the scene. We'd already lost to the Minnesota Vikings, but it was an agonizing loss earlier in the season. And by this point in the season, the Vikings were 10-2. But we all knew they were an absolutely fraudulent 10-2, just absolute chances that were just waiting to be unpicked. But, you know, you've got to do it. Like, you can't just talk about it. If you're calling someone out for a fraud, you have to do something about it. And this was our chance. And this was a game where we were kind of up all the way through. I think we were 7 points up at halftime, 8 points up by the end of the third quarter. But there was just that point. And I think we did the same against Washington when we had a lead, when it just started to feel like the game was tightening up. And I know I was beginning to absolute sweat buckets. We really needed to put a drive together. We needed to run the clock down. And this is like the kind of Lions Achilles heel, isn't it? Like clock management, grinding out a drive. And I think we got to ourselves where we're 3rd and 7. And all of a sudden, you know, like we're ahead. We're like, you know, we've got a healthy lead, but it just felt like the momentum was starting to turn. And I think, you know, I think Dan Miller was doing the radio call and he's like announcing the play and he's talking about, you know, like Goff under center, single back, Jamal Williams in the backfield. And then there was a long pause. And then there was just this, in motion, it's Sewell. And from out of nowhere, thundering across the screen is the big man, number 58, Penny Sewell, absolutely rumbling horizontally across the field. And I think everyone was just like, what the actual fuck? And then not only is he rumbling across the field, but Goff steps back and just absolutely picks him out. And first of all, it wasn't the easiest catch. Like, he had to kind of turn in midair and swivel and take it. And I mean, that was hairy enough. But also it was a case of him, like, bringing the ball in and making sure we got that first down, and which he did in spectacular style with a huge belly flop, a joyful belly flop. And I think the relief for all of us, like, no fan could possibly have sat and stayed on their sofa or, on their seat in the stands. Everyone was on their feet for that, as Sewell splashes down inbounds. And then there's a wonderful moment when one of the Vikings players tries to get the ball off him, and he kind of just puts out this huge paw and swats him away. It was just an absolutely golden moment, and just one that, like, I will absolutely never forget, and rightly so, that the Player of the Year.
Yeah, we've seen before tackles catch the ball, in the end zone from the 1 yard line. They line up on the end of the line, release, little disguise route, and Decker's done that a couple of times. I don't think we've ever seen an offensive tackle line up as a wide receiver, and he's done it twice this year as well. And they set him up, I think, in this very game to do the very same thing. Absolutely incredible play. It really did say to the Vikings, we think you're shit, lads. Like, it was just the best.
And also, I think, from just purely from an offensive point of view, like, I couldn't love Sewell more in terms of how Sewell's played this year. He's played fierce. He's been dangerous. He's just been pancaking people. Like, there's nothing more he could have done. Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, no, here he comes. He's going to catch a really difficult ball and ice the Vikings. Like, just awesome.
And then it's the way it was set up as well, because they'd already had him in motion earlier in the game. And, you're thinking, well, he's already done it. So that kind of relaxes the fear that he's going to do anything crazy. So to set it up that way and then pull it off on them, it takes a lot of guts to make that call. But for Penne to bring it in and then to have the smarts to go down in bounds. I mean, you saw yesterday, you see during the playoffs, players on the field who freeze when it matters with no idea about clock management, foot placement, anything like that. You kind of forget it in the big moment. Penne kept his cool, caught the ball, dived, and I think we've probably got the greatest photo of the season out of the NFL from that one. The picture of him flying, that'll be there in 20 years' time. We'll still remember that. So, you get the photo, you get the graphic from it, the imagery. It's just everything about it. That is what a great play is. It's going to live long in the memory.
It was just a big fuck you to Ed Donatel on that defense. It was beautiful. Hang that in the Louvre.
I think we should do that. I might do that. I might get it printed on a big piece and just like put it on the wall behind or something. It'll just be there. It's worthy of.
They were totally emotional in the, doing the call. Dan Miller and his crew. I think someone just shouted out, "Ben Johnson, I love you." It's just an awesome moment.
It was nameless.
I think it was hilarious when Campbell went on Pat McAfee thing afterwards. He's like, "Oh yeah, I had no idea they were doing it. Oh, what the fuck's that? Yada yada." It was funny the way he went about it afterwards. But to have that sort of trust in your coordinator and that, and to be like, right, yeah, you do it. You know what you're doing. It's the great thing about this staff. They trust one another, and when you have that trust, it just makes things so much easier.
It really does. It really does. Right, folks, any more thoughts about Player of the Year, or shall we move on? All right, next up is Anthony Fitzpatrick presenting Man of the Year.
Okay. Yeah, so the Roar of the Lions UK Man of the Year. So not doing individual player awards, anything that. Yeah, this is just But outstanding character, you know, guys, doesn't have to be on the field, could be off the field as well. And the fact that we've got such a big list here just sort of shows testament to the culture and the team that Dan Campbell and co are building here, because there are a lot of great personalities in the building. So we had 6 nominations for this one. So first up, we had Jared Goff, obviously Walter Payton Man of the Year representative for the Lions this season. You've seen the work he's doing with kids in and around Detroit, etc., as well as some of his work on the field as well. You know, it's a lot to be nominated Walter Payton Man of the Year. So for him to get that, you know, it just shows his credentials for this. Got Penei Sewell. We've just been talking about him and how he gets on here, but in terms of his charitable work that he does, you know, the guy he is off the field, the guy he is on the field as well. He was absolutely a worthy candidate for this award as well. We've got Jamal Williams. You know, who needs to say anything about Jamal? You know what kind of character that Jamal is. You've seen it through Hard Knocks. You've seen it in interviews. You've seen it in post-game locker celebrations. The guy is just all personality. We had Jason Kabinda, obviously Walter Payton Man of the Year nomination for us last year. Friend of the show, been on the show before. He's one of the best guys to have in your locker room. So he absolutely was going to be up for this again. Malcolm Rodriguez, who does not love Rodrigo? You know, everybody loves Rod. You know, the impact he's had here on this team, you know, just been this fresh-faced rookie who's come in. You get to see him a bit on Hard Knocks, you know, just a guy who is really down to earth, really focused on what he does. And, you know, he's got the fashion sense as well. I want Malcolm Rodriguez's fashion sense in life. Just whatever he wears, he looks good. And then Frank Ragnow as well. You obviously, out of all the players, you get to see a lot about Frank. You know, he's got his own little series going on. Everyone watched the one where he takes Goff fishing. But Ragnow is such a down-to-earth guy. And in terms of how he's played through this season, he's just had, you know, foot surgery from last year. He's been playing injured this season. You know, this guy on and off the field is a true man of steel. So there were so many candidates to have for this one. But of course, I think there was only ever going to be one winner for this. I would be surprised if this was not unanimous, but the Roar of the Lions UK Man of the Year goes to the swag daddy himself, Jamal Williams. And how the hell could you not? You start off the year with Hard Knocks, the raw emotion, the passion in the speech that he represents to the Lions there about how last year, not good enough, the standards, they need to get better. You know, you've got to do more going forward. And for him to translate that onto the field is a big thing, because we've had a lot of vets in this team over the last few years who have not delivered on this side. He has gone out, he has worked and grinded his ass off. He has broken Barry Sanders' touchdown record over the season. You know, he's eclipsed 1,000 yards, first running back from BYU ever to do it. You know, it was just such a great season for him. And how he's embraced Detroit, the fan base, you see it before the game, throwing the footballs, he's involved, he's a leader on and off the field. And, you know, the most important part of that leadership is leading from the front, on the field, grinding the team forward. And I think we just all love him. He's one of the most honest, most genuine people ever. And, you know, I kind of want him here at this franchise for the rest of his playing career and afterwards. So this is a very well-earned award for Jamal Williams. He is the Man of the Year for the Lions, the leader off the field, the leader on it, the guy who leads by example. Well done to the Swag Daddy.
First Swag Kazakage, leader of the hidden village of the dead.
Love that. Obviously, as Lions fans, we've been accustomed to love Jamal Williams last year as well because of all his off-field antics, but let's be honest, he was a pretty easy target if you weren't a Lions fan watching Hard Knocks. He didn't have a great 2021. He obviously was getting emotional, lots of passion, bit of a different cat. So I think he was an easy target for a lot of guys, not least that Colts linebacker. So for him to follow that up by not only being the passionate leader and real soul of this team, but then to have the performance he did on the field as well, it's incredible. And like I say, it was a really strong list of nominees, but there was only one answer in my mind.
Yeah, and I think breaking the Barry Sanders record, but at no point did it feel like Jamal Williams' ego was growing in relation to his, closeness to the record. Like, he was still the same guy, and he was still bringing the passion, but it wasn't at all about him. It was about the team. And, like his speech after his interview after the Packers game, when he's talking about his family, and then he just kind of like comes through that and then just absolutely like castigates everyone and lets it all out. And he's like, stop playing us, stop playing Detroit. Like, that's the passion. That's this team. Love him.
Yeah, heartbeat the team, isn't he? He's the talisman. Everything kind of flows through how he's feeling. He betrays it on his face any which way. Like, he can't hold it back. He is just unashamedly himself, and that's what being a Detroiter should be all about. I mean, adopted we may be, but we are who we are, and we're here, and we're not going away, and that's everything that he's about. You may be surprised, Ant, to know that only 4 of the 7 of us voted for him. It was a majority, but only just.
That's
In fact,
surprising.
4 of 7? Let me recheck that. 3 of 7. Sorry, not a majority. So there we go. Ash, right?
This award is more than just. I love Jamal, but for me, it's got to be off the field too. And for me, Hard Knocks now don't count. That's still football. Like, the man is all football, he's all passion. But I can't. I know I didn't vote for him. I can remember that much. I can't remember who I voted for.
Probably voted for Ragnow, I think.
Maybe, like I say, yeah. For me, it's just an all-encompassing award. I feel it goes to someone else that makes a big difference, like I say, in the community. I know, not saying Jamal don't, but also for me, I have to take like charitable work and stuff like that into account of it. I know Kabinda like had a tour of high schools this year because Maddie took the photos when she was with the Lions, and she followed him around. He met school kids, so that's the kind of thing that kind of resonates with me for an award like this. When you go and you give your time up for free, and you see people, you help people, you do things like that. So I know Jamal do that kind of thing, but that's kind of where I lean to. But yeah, he's a very worthy winner, and we all have different opinions on whether he should be back or not. But if he does return, then I'm sure that it works for everybody. Like I say, the deal, the terms, what we're going to get from him, just as much as we want him here as he wants to be here. So yeah, very worthy candidate, all of them.
Ash, any thoughts on Jamal?
So yeah, I agree he's a worthy winner, but I'm gonna expose myself as someone that didn't vote for him. I voted for Goff because I agree. I like the same reasons as Rye. Like, it's a charitable stuff. It's maybe because I obviously live on Twitter 24/7. I do not sleep. That I see that all the charitable stuff that's always been put forward. So even just before the news of Ben Johnson returning was announced, he was running a competition for tickets and stuff. So for me, I took that into account with my vote because Goff has been a leader on the field and off with all the charitable work in the same way that Kabinda was last year with all his charitable work, and then being the player representative for their like player association as well. So I took all of that into account. Agree, Jamal 100% is deserving. It was very tough for me. I just took the charitable stuff aside because I thought Jamal probably would get the laudits for everything else. So I thought, why not boost Goff up a bit when he needs that charitable stuff to be shown, which is why he's also obviously our Walter Payton nominee for this year, though I doubt he's going to win it because obviously the media hates us.
I think the interpretation is half the fun with these, though, because as in with Player of the Year, there's no way I could argue with Sewell winning that. It was probably the biggest kind of jump off your seat moment of the year, unbridled joy. But for me, I went with what I thought was the best Player of the Year, so to speak. So yeah, I think the different interpretations is half the fun.
100%.
If you're watching this, Jared Goff, please open that competition to people outside of the US. I would gladly donate to win tickets. Rude, but
it's always the way. It's always the way.
It's like Tom says, it's your interpretation of it. So for a man of the year, for me, it's like you have to incorporate everything, whether it's your play on the field, it's your play off the field. And Jamal is a rare one who was completely taken in this city and its fans. The love and respect he has for everybody, even after last year when he hadn't broken the record. He's created a bond with the fans and the city as well as the team. And for me, when you add both those parts together, that just kind of makes the guy there, because that's someone who puts it into everything he does. And to be so genuine as well on the side, I think that is what a man of the year is there for. And the fact that he took accountability when so few others did for the failures of this team last year, and when it did, to go out there and really lead from the front and say, look, I've held accountability, I'll go out there and sort it. That for me is a massive thing when it comes to dealing with bits like this. We've not had that from vets in previous years. It's just been, oh yeah, we'll do better, whatever. He has raw heart and emotion and actually means it, which carries a lot.
All right, our next award is going to be the Coach of the Year, and it's presented by Tom Wilkinson.
Okay, so we'll go straight to the nominations, but I want that drum roll ready to go for when we get to the awards. So, nominees for Coach of the Year. We start with MCDC himself, Dan Campbell, the leader of the Pride. Ben Johnson could potentially have lost him elsewhere, but he's come back. Our offensive hero, well, not offensive, you know what I mean, but our hero for this year. Todd Wash, the D-line, it was a laughing stock at the start of this year, and he turned it around. Lee McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston, all of these guys breaking out into superstardom almost. And finally, Kelvin Shepherd, all the way through from Hard Knocks. He's been almost our most passionate leader off the field as well. Obviously taken that group of linebackers to another level and stopped us moaning about them constantly like we did in 2021. So a very strong list of candidates. I tell you what, guys, what a pleasant place to be talking about 4 coaches like this versus probably where we were a year ago. However, there can only be one winner. So the winner for Coach of the Year 2022 is Daniel Allen Campbell, MCDC himself. Rumor has it Allen Park was named in advance of Dan Campbell coming because they knew he was going to be the savior of the Lions. Look, I mean, what a group of nominees. Again, it's a tough one to go away from Dan Campbell. He's dealt with all the shit from everyone outside of Detroit ever since he got here. He's self-deprecating. He's passionate. He's everything we could want in a leader. He understands what all Detroit fans have been through. And then on the field, I'm not quite going to say perfection, but it's been absolutely superb. Not only motivating these guys, not only building the game plans, giving his coaches license to do things like the Sewell play, like the hook and ladder in the Packers game. He's just built an incredible culture where we've got support for the owner, we've got support for the players. Our coaches are in demand from the entire league. And ultimately, it all comes down to one person. Now, he would never want even an ounce of the credit. You see on any of the interviews, he's self-deprecating. He will always turn it back to his team, his coaches, his players, his owner, anyone he can but himself. So I think it's only right that we recognize what an incredible job he's done this year.
For me personally, I didn't vote for him, but he's a very worthy winner. I said last year, how many beat writers and journalists crapped on him, shit on him, scrutinized every little thing he did. He made some very questionable calls that at times could be criticized. But this year, they just weren't there. They weren't the silly, ridiculous, don't go by the numbers, 4th down calls, where he didn't stop to think about it, where he didn't take a timeout to go through with it, evaluate all his options, just went with his gut. He went for it. It failed, and sometimes it cost us field position, it cost us games. And he learned that. He took that on board. I'm sure at some point he didn't look much at social media, but he saw people ragging on him, people even criticising the hire in the first place. And a lot of people were super critical of that. But this year, he just never let him bother him. Like I say, he just took to it like a duck on water, took on board any criticism, probably took it to heart a little, and it fueled him. Like I say, down the stretch, some really big, smart calls. Him and Ben Johnson, kind of like an extension of one another. If there was a big 4th play down call, like their timeout call at the right time, everyone going in the same direction at the same time on the same page. And he's had to make some difficult decisions. That's in that time to let Anthony Lynn go. to admit that it's not working. Like I say, we don't get along. We're not on the same page. To admit you're wrong as well. That really shows me a lot about him, and that can't have been easy at the time. And this year, all the post game presses, the speeches, him and she, like I said, they've got an affinity. Like I said, they feel like one. Like that, she's got total faith in him, and he's rewarding that faith that she's shown in him. So right now, I think if he wins, everyone wins. So yeah, I can't really complain with him winning the award.
And let's not forget that it was only 10, 12 weeks ago when people were calling for his job, and not just kind of trolls. People were like, this guy, it's not working out. The Lions are 1-6. There were a lot of people thinking he was done. And then throughout that second half of the season, not only did he turn the team around, but we talked about it in the review games. You go back to some of the critical calls, the fourth downs, he was getting everyone right. No one gets all of them right. And that's what we were trying to tell people when he started getting them wrong, that he's going to have to learn. It's not always going to be perfect. And then you go back to pretty much every fourth down conversion call, every game management piece. And while, yeah, it wasn't completely perfect, it was about as good as you can expect. So the turnaround, I think, in his performance, his reputation, everything about it, it was just incredible.
I think the thing that I really respect about him was obviously, you know, like he got a lot of shit for like how he comes across, his press conferences, the stuff that he's saying. And Tom, as you said, like at that point where he's 1-6, and like, you know, there's so much chat about, you know, is this guy out of his depth? This guy's going to lose his job. Like he never changed. Like, you know, he was still in every press conference, he was still a glass case of emotion. You know, he was in terms of like the stuff that he was saying, he didn't start speaking in coach speak. He still, like, you know, absolutely gave it both barrels when he needed to. You know, he was still really, really honest. And, you know, he didn't try and be something he's not. And for me, that's like the marker of the man. You know, he's like a strong guy. He knows who he is. And when you see him doing like the game ball presentations in the locker room after the game, you can see that everyone is like hanging on to his every word. He's got their complete respect. So yeah, great shout in terms of getting this award.
I will fight Dan Campbell's corner against the entire world at this point. I just have that much love and respect for him as a coach. As everyone has made a good deal of saying already, he has taken so much shit this last 18 months from media, from the same old Lions bunch, from all these guys seeking to discredit him and the way that he does things. And he has never, ever erred from his goal here. You know, he has always taken accountability. He did not need to take accountability for last year. You know, £100 million worth of players in dead cap or on the IR, you know, a young team which is just based around draft picks. He had every excuse in the world to write off last year as just a bad year, and he didn't. He took accountability for it all. And that is the sign of a strong leader, when he will do that. When the excuses, he doesn't use them, not like Patricia used to. And even at 1-6, you know, he still sticks to the plan. And what is it that brings the team out of that 1-6 slump? It's not an offensive coordinator. It's not a defensive coordinator getting a few stops. It's not, you know, a miracle from the heavens. It's the culture that the head coach has established, that no matter how bleak things are, no matter how bad things are, you will be able to fight your way out of this. You have the talent to get out of this. You just need that little bit of belief in there to do so. And it is the mentality and the culture that he has installed which has been responsible for the reason this team turned it round so well. And that is, you know, the biggest part of what this team is going to be going forward. This is why culture matters. You know, if he didn't have this hard-working mentality, if he didn't have the ethos that he does, we'd probably have gone 1-16. We might not have won many more games this year, and it's all down to him that we were able to. And you know, the deficiencies in his game, as Ryan said, the play calling is better, the clock management is better. You know, all of the things we ragged on him for last year, you know, all the criticisms we had, he has answered this season. And I mean, it's his second year as a head coach. You need the time and patience for these things to work themselves out. And the Lions are 100% benefiting from this. Who goes to Green Bay when they've got nothing to play for against a Packers team on the verge of the playoffs and outfights them roundly? You know, no ordinary team does that. They have to have a leader who inspires them to go out there and do it. And he is that guy. And whilst all our coaches have been terrific, fantastic this season, he is the one who leads it all. He is the first guy to get criticism when things go wrong. He should be the first guy to get the praise when it goes right. So Dan Campbell is a worthy winner by a long shot for me.
I just want to bring this down to bring it back up again. We all are saying about how Dan has turned it around, how the play calling, the situational play calling has gotten much better, and him deciding to go for it or not go for it has gotten much better. Lest we forget that Patriots game. The 8 fourth down calls, all of which were not that great, setting us to defeat. I mean, there's no question that those calls caused that defeat. And after last year, and seeing some of the questionable calls, and then that happened, he showed some improvement before that, but then to regress to that. And the thing about Dan, and what makes him the winner of this award, in spite of that game, is that lesser men, more egotistical men, double down on things like that. When they get them wrong, they don't have the strength of character to go, you know what, I might be wrong. You know what happens when you get quarterbacks like Zach Wilson saying, do you think you bear any blame for what happened to you guys? Oh no, it's not my fault. I did the right thing. Dan Campbell could be one of those guys, and he's got every reason to be egotistical. He's an NFL head coach, and there's only 32 of them. But he has the strength of character to not just wait until the end of the season to review how he's done, but to look back at a game and go, wow, I got this wrong. And the turnaround was spectacular. Like, that Patriots game was as bad as I've ever seen play calling. That was worse than Caldwell era situational stuff in one game. But the rest of the season was absolutely terrific. So he fully well deserves it for just turning the ship around. At 1-6, it's dead and buried. And like, I wasn't calling for his head, it was premature, but you know, you get to 1-11, 1-12, it starts to become hard to ignore. And he righted the ship, and he did it in a way that leaves us so confident going into next year that he just absolutely deserves plaudits.
Was that the only one that didn't vote for him? Out of curiosity.
Votes for Coach of the Year. Let's have a look. You voted for Kelvin Shepherd.
I did.
Can I just give a shout out, by the way, to Dave Phipp, who didn't make the shortlist. An absolutely fantastic performance as special teams coach. Every game, it feels like we might have a trick up our sleeve. And when we don't have a trick up our sleeve, we're going to murder you on punt coverage or kickoff returns. He's had an unbelievable couple of years here. And he's an absolute priority to keep. Special teams ain't important until it's important. Ask Green Bay. They know. They know.
To be honest, I'd have happily voted for about half a dozen guys here. I really genuinely would have. It's again, it comes down to preference and what you think personally it is. But Shep deserves a medal. You know, Wash deserves a medal. You know, Ben Johnson deserves 2 medals. I mean, it's just a great staff. You know, we could probably have like 5 or 6 legitimate winners for this one, and probably still have people we've missed out.
Right, shall we move on to the next award? The next one is Signing of the Year, and that one is for me. So, we have the nominees as follows. The first one, just so to say, Signing of the Year is limited to people we acquired during the off-season, not via the draft. So, new people coming in, it could be trade, it could be free agency, it could be waiver wire. You came to the team anew and you are not a college player coming out. The first one is John Kaminsky, and what a year John had. Played 14 games after being claimed on waivers, 3 passes defended and a forced fumble, 4 sacks, 30 tackles, 12 quarterback hits. Spectacular year. Isaiah Buggs, he came in the off-season, unheralded, played all 17 games, a sack, 2 passes defended, 46 tackles, 10 quarterback hits, far surpassing all expectations of what he might do. I think some people didn't even think that he'd make the roster, to be quite honest. Deshaun Elliott, the starting strong safety, he got benched for one game, it's true. But if you have a look at his performances before and after that, it's safe to say that he's the leader of that DB room right now. Some people want it to be Jeff Okudah, but some people who have played the majority of the games, like Jeff has obviously come back and played all the games this year, but Deshaun has shown through his physicality and his mentality that he's a real leader of that team, and I hope he comes back. The last one is Benito Jones, another guy unheralded in that interior of the defensive line, but 1.5 sacks and 16 tackles for him. A really, really good year. These guys are all worthy winners of the award, but the winner is... It's John Kaminsky, and John has been absolutely spectacular. He has come in. He's got a vet minimum contract here. I think he's on about $965,000, something to that effect. What he's done has been nothing short of fantastic. Second in the team in pressures with 44. He got 9 against Buffalo. He got 5 against Green Bay, final game of the year, notching up a PFF grade of 89.8. When we've drafted players to play in his position in Josh Pascal or Aiden Hutchinson, when we've got players returning like Romeo Okwara, or players that you'd hope would be starting in that sort of DN position somewhere in Charles Harris. He's come in less than $1 million, and frankly, he's a starter. Until we draft someone maybe ahead of him, I don't see us bringing anyone else in free agency ahead of him. We've got a loaded edge room. But the guy under $1 million is the starter right now. It speaks absolute volumes to why he is the signing of the year for 2022-23.
Faced adversity too. Like I say, with the hand injury that needed a procedure, it had to be bound and casted. Like I say, he had to learn to play with basically no fingers. Couldn't really wrap up. Had to have the club on the hand, and then it went to like the soft upper mitt. So he had a transitional progress making that return, which was like a 4 or 5 week period of like not being effective to learning to play with it and using it and actually utilizing it, playing like 1.5 handed. And he says that it taught him a lot and that he learned to play through it. He learned how to make the most of it and how he could get around that lack of grip in one hand. And he was all the better for it. So yeah, someone that has challenged, like I say, he's had challenges as well. Like I say, I know Deshaun had an injury.
That sound means that David Reinfurt69 has gifted a tier 1 sub on Twitch to Patman70. Thank you, David. Sorry, folks.
So I don't like that. It made me jump.
Big, strong lads like you.
But no, yeah, I think Kamish was a very good winner. But yeah, Bugs as well deserves plaudits because, like I say, when Bugs came in, we had that notorious high missed tackle rate, and he was seen as a bit of a liability on a defensive line. But in the end, him and McNeil formed quite a good stalwart partnership. So all very credible candidates.
I mean, yeah, he absolutely deserves this. And, you know, you said that, you know, maybe we've got a loaded edge room, but when Kamish came here, Levi was injured, Pascal was injured, Romeo was injured, you know, Houston hadn't arrived on the scene yet, Harris was injured. This was at a point where our edge room was completely and utterly decimated, and we needed someone to stand up for this team and be that second guy opposite Aiden. And this guy who gets released by the Falcons, he said last year he couldn't wait to leave. They didn't want to use him. For him to come into this team and then just take over as like the lead pressure guy for a big part of this season, he had more pressures than Aiden. He was producing something fierce. And as Ryan said, injured. Did we notice a bigger drop-off in this team anywhere than when Kamish was injured this year? No, well, we really missed him when he was out because Aiden was the only guy in there and we had no one else to go with. So for a guy who's come off waivers to be that intrinsical to a team so quickly and then to come back, play through injury with the cast on, it's like he didn't need to do that. He didn't need to go to such a length to prove himself here, and he has. And at the end of the day, we can credit him with holding the fort down while all the rest of the players get fit and healthy again, to the point we didn't miss him as much. Now he's a valuable part of that rotation going forward, and he absolutely needs to be a priority re-sign for next year, because those are the guys you want, who buy into the culture and come in and take the most of their opportunity. And if we want to establish ourselves as that team going forward, you've got to reward the guys who come in and play really well. But Kamish came when times were dire, and he stood up for this team, and he's a worthy winner for this one. For me, again, I think it was pretty clear.
Just to highlight quite how good some of those interior defensive linemen were, though, Bugs came in and got 20 pressures on the team. I think that was 4th, and Benito Jones got 16, which is 6th behind James Houston. The impact these guys have had across the board have been spectacular, and I mean, apart from Deshaun, none of them were paid particularly much, and Deshaun didn't get very much either.
So to sort of say I told you so on Bugs and Jones, I remember in the offseason saying we need to get another big guy to help McNeil. We need to get one. And we got 2, and look what's happened. They've absolutely stood up. Elliott has become a leader in that backfield, where he's also going to be a priority re-sign. Even if we draft a guy like, fingers crossed, Jamie Robinson, the guy that can play the Will Harris role and be a safety slot cornerback, hopefully he'll be back to be the leader, because you got him, you got Tracy coming off of ACL tear, you got Kirby, who is is already probably a top 5 single high safety in the league, and then you've got CJ Moore as a special teams ace, who we will mention a bit later with his special moments. So all of them were deserving, but Kamish, he nailed down that closed end role in front of a guy they drafted in the 2nd round to play it, and he's potentially pushed out Romeo Okwara, which obviously will upset some people like Matt, who's probably the only owner of a Romeo Okwara jersey in the world. But he's made himself so much more valuable to a team in terms of his leadership. Remember, in one season, coming from being cut and having to live in a hotel room with his wife and baby, to now being a guy where the fans are literally begging the front office to sign him. It's just amazing.
All right, we'll move on to our next award, which is Comeback Player of the Year. And Ash, you are up for this one.
So, Comeback Player of the Year, we have 3 nominees. First being Frank Ragnow, obviously coming off that foot injury from last year and then still playing through injury this year. Very deserving nominee. We have Jeff Okudah, the former 3rd overall pick, who had a bad first few years here under Patricia, with injury, being the wrong scheme, and just not having the confidence. And then we have fan favorite UDFA from last year, Jerry Jacobs, who was unheralded, and then the past 2 seasons has made himself at least CB3 on our team, perhaps even a starter on the outside, coming from absolutely nowhere. And then obviously coming off his ACL tear from last year with the friendly fire from Will Harris. May he be gone soon. So all 3 very deserving nominees, but the award winner is Jeff Okudah, having overcome Patricia injuries to be for the first half of the season to be one of the best corners in the league. Fortunately, fell off after his illness and injury late in the season. But for the most part, Okudah showed that 3rd overall promise that we were hoping for, and hopefully next year he can get back to it again and just be a lockdown corner.
I think this is going to be an award that people are going to be surprised by. You heard in the off-season last year, hate for Okudah, cut him, get rid of him, don't want him here. For the way that he started the year, he really turned it around quickly. He was at the point where he'd taken back a starting role for himself. But that injury, that illness comes, he starts playing poorly again. The murmurs start again. People don't want him here. But you know what? You have to take the entirety of the season into account. And from where he was 12 months ago to where he is now, looking across the whole season, he's a very worthy winner of this. Like, he's done really well. Is he acting like a 3rd overall pick? Has he been that good? No. But from where he was, it's a massive turnaround, and hopefully the trajectory continue upwards.
And Jerry Jacobs has done an incredible job. Undrafted guy, impossible not to love him. I think it's easy to get almost distracted by draft position in this, when ultimately at this stage they're on our team and they're like, what they cost in the draft is irrelevant, right? It's what they can contribute to the team. Okuda coming back from an Achilles injury, year one, no one is at their best. You've seen that with all kinds of players who have come back. He had a fantastic start to the year. He's still got, and PFF grades on everything, but he's still got a better PFF grade than Jerry Jacobs, right? So it's not like, I know he struggled the back end of the year, but it's not like he was a disaster. And he's got a harder role. He's often, especially in the early part of the season, he was going up against the number ones. He was the guy that, yes, may have had some help, but he was going up against Justin Jefferson and all these guys. So it's nothing against someone like Jerry, who's an absolute legend. It's more, I think it's so easy to take shots at Okuda and not appreciate what he's had to go through over the last couple of years and the role he has to fill on that defense. So yeah, obviously the year didn't end the way we wanted to, but there were still signs of promise. And from a pure comeback standpoint, I thought it was really impressive.
Yeah, this was tough. I mean, I voted Jerry on this, but for me, it's not discounting what Akuda's done. I mean, I think we all were really rooting for him to do well this year. But in terms of what Jerry did, he had to fight his way onto a roster as an undrafted free agent. He had to fight his way into this team. He then played so well to the point that we're thinking, oh, wow, he might have starter potential here. To have such a bad injury derail you at that point, he could easily have not made a roster. That could have easily killed his career in one, because he is an undrafted free agent. Teams will chuck away undrafted free agents more than they will first-round picks when it comes to these things. And for him to come back from an equally devastating injury and slot straight back in and play like he hadn't left, for me, given where he was taken, that is an unbelievable achievement from Jerry, really. But I mean, in fairness, I'm proud of the pair of them. I mean, Jerry had the love of the fans to help him through his. Jeff's never really had that, and you know, a lot of media slung mud at him. I'm not going to name names, but certain Detroit, you know, wannabe media guys poured a lot of hate on him as well, and he had to deal with all that. And they've suddenly gone very quiet on the issue. You know, I think to see him come back and answer all those wrong, you know, is a great thing. And as Tom said, this is not an easy injury to come back from. To come back and play effectively a full season straight off this injury is difficult. Of course, he's going to wear down towards the end of the season because the body just ain't there yet. He's not done a full season when he was fully healthy before. So I think regression was to be expected a little bit. Now he's going to have another full off season. He's got a good season of work under his belt. Hopefully, you know, he takes the big leap forward next year that we want to see. But him and Jerry, you know, I've been amazed by them both, and I'm glad that we have the pair of them.
Yeah, so I voted for Jeff, and I've talked about this before when we did our end of season review. But for me, the big problem with the fans' relationship with Okuda and his perception amongst, you know, a lot of the kind of media types is that Okuda's come back from a really, really tough injury, and then he's come in, you know, and he's integrated back into the team. But guess what? Our cornerback room is like the most problematic. And within like a week of being back on the field, Jeff Okuda is our CB1. And that's just so dangerous in terms of, you know, that expectation that Okuda all of a sudden is going against our opponent's number one receivers. And I think that's really, really a tough place for him to be in. And the fact, you know, yeah, I think he got benched. You know, he missed a lot of snaps at various points of the season. Like, no wonder there's going to be regression because of the spot that he's kind of like coming back into. So for me, that just shows, you know, he never hid. He kept making the tackles. You know, an amazing performance in the Chicago game when he picked Fields. You know, the guy's obviously got heart, and I think we're going to see a lot more from Okuda. But I also think we need to support that whole cornerback room by using some draft capital this year.
All I'll say is, well, it's not the time or the place for me to say what I think about him in his future, but if you're looking for a comeback player of the year award, he's had a severe injury. He's played with some Muppets that have tried to coach him. and he's been thrown into a positional group that is dreadful, and he's basically been asked to step up and be the guy when he's like a lion tamer, and he's working with a bunch of guys that don't want to perform. So he's had so much thrown upon him, and it's very easier to rag on the guy. But once he gets in a stable position, he's got guys around him that can actually help him. I think we'll see a different Jeff. So yes, for him to play 17 games this year after coming off a bad injury, up and down player, totally to be expected. But he personifies what the Ward is about. He's faced adversity, he's come back, played a full year, and hopefully, touchwood, fingers crossed, he's now turned a corner, health-wise and mental-wise as well. Because mentally, this must have been very draining on him as well. So yeah, hopefully, he is going to make that jump next year when we give him reinforcements and there's not so much pressure on him. It must be pretty crippling to know that everyone is looking at him to rely on him to carry that defensive back room essentially a lot of the time. And that's a hard onus to carry on a young man. So yeah, he's a worthy winner of the award.
All right, we'll move this on to the 7th award of the evening. We are going, Ant, to the Most Improved Player Award, and you are up for this one, but maybe I will filibuster for a moment.
Filibuster for one moment.
Just to say hi to you guys in the chat. Thank you so much for your support during this season. I hope you are getting tingles talking about it just as much as I am here. Harley Quinn in the chat saying, I can't believe football's almost over. How am I going to deal with my life? There's still 3 more weeks to go, so don't worry about that. And I'm sure the USFL will be fun, maybe. We have got 7 through 13 to go. The remaining awards: Most Improved Player, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, MVP, Fans Moment of the Year, and Fans Player of the Year. Ant, are you ready to go, my man?
Yeah, sorry, I was just doing the graphic for the last one. So, Most Improved Player. So, again, this is a category that had a lot of nominations in it this year, because how can you say this team has not improved from last season, going from 3 wins, it was 1-6 early, to just missing out on the playoffs and beating Green Bay at Lambeau. This team as a whole, in every single department, got better this season, and there were probably maybe 20 or 30 guys you could have put in there, but some guys stood out overall of this. So the nominations, we had 7 we managed to get it down to, and that took a lot of arguing and debating to do so. But first up, we had LeBron's Adonis himself, Alex Anzalone. Now, not one of us on this pod, apart from maybe Matt, can claim to have always been on Alex's side. There has been a lot of criticism, and I will hold my hands up. I have given a lot of tap to Alex Anzalone over his time here in Detroit, but even I noticed this season that he finally stood up and was the leader on defense that we longed for with him. And with his play getting better, the young guys around him playing better, I think he's finally been put in a situation to succeed, and his play down the stretch has been really good, to the point that a lot of people want him back now. And if you'd have said that after 1-6, you'd have probably been laughed out of the building. So that is absolutely an improvement there for him. Jamal Williams, I mean, what can be stated there? He's broken Barry Sanders' touchdown record in a season. He's broken the 1,000-yard barrier. He has been immensely better this second season. After the first year, everyone was going, oh, yeah, he's not the home run hitter guy. He gets a few yards up the middle. Everyone wanted Swift in. But when Swift went missing this year through injury and bad play, he was the guy who stood up and took that running back room to the point where Swift could not get his job back. Jamal had a wonderful season all the way through, so his play improved in line with what he said it was going to do. Khalif Raymond, again, another one I've had a bit of a sketchy time with here, but there is no doubt in the impact he has had on this team this year. The return part of his game finally came to fruition. We didn't really see it year 1, but year 2, he has been a very good return guy, and he's made a lot of big plays as a receiver as well. So yeah, Khalif, he's improved no end. Aleem, I think Tom mentioned it briefly earlier, but Aleem's my favourite player on the side. He always has been. Nothing to do with where he came from, but still, as the all-conquering nose tackle that we needed to cement that line, He's finally also been put in a position to succeed. Last year, he had Brockers and Nick Williams, who were no good between the pair of them. Not an ounce of talent in either of them left. This year, there's been guys in there. Bugs has been in there. You know, we've had guys who've, you know, Benito Jones has come in. He's finally been able to get down to his role, what we required of him here. And he's looked really good, whether it be a case of, you know, the run stuff in, the pass, you know, pass rushing. He's just got better in all facets. And nose tackle, it's a position that don't get a lot of love, but we see it. We see it, Aleem. Jared Goff, obviously massive thing here for Jared Goff. Second year, the turnovers are gone. A lot of the icky plays where we're thinking, oh my God, the turnover-worthy plays have gone. He's embraced the city, he's embraced Detroit, and he finally seems to have embraced this offense, and they finally seem to be looking to him as the leader that the quarterback needs to be. And down the stretch, he's been nothing short of sensational in all the games we've won, even against teams like the Bills with really good secondaries. He has sliced and diced them to bits. So well done for Goff. Derek Barnes, a lot of concern over him and where he was going in this team, got dropped earlier in the season. He had a little bit of time away on the sidelines just to recuperate and rest himself, get his head back in the right position. He's come in the team and done really well towards the end of the season, and we need it. We do going forward. He's still got a long way to go, but in terms of improvement this year, he's looked a lot better than he did on year one. And then finally, Brock Wright, undrafted free agent from last year as well. TJ was traded this season. We needed a guy to stand up in his place at tight end and do the dirty work for us. And Brock Wright has come through magnificently and multi-touchdown games. He got a lot better with his blocking. They seem to love him, and there's no debate as to why. So a lot of good guys here for improved play. And I've just had the notes down that we've changed this one.
Yeah, because it was a tiebreak. It was a tiebreaker, and I wrote down the wrong name.
And I think I broke the tiebreaker as well.
Did.
This is going to get this is going to get a lot of hate. So we've got Anzalone, Jamal, Khalif Raymond, Aleem McNeil, Jared Goff, Derek Barnes, Brock Wright, and the winner of Most Improved Player for the Detroit Lions in 2022 is Aleem McNeil, our bona fide stud at defensive tackle. And for me, again, when we drafted him 2 years ago, I did the video on him, and I said that this is a position that does not get a lot of love because they don't show up fancy on the stat sheet. They don't, it's a lot of the hard, gritty work, taking the double teams, stuffing the run, that nitty gritty on the defensive line where, you get a lot of unappreciated work. And, as this season's gone on, as he's got reinforcements in there to come in and, allow him to be able to do his job, Aleem has really, really flourished. The run game, we were able to stop so many great running backs. Saquon Barkley got nothing on us this year. We were able to suffocate teams, and it all starts in the interior. The defensive line in general has been a hell of a lot better, but it all starts with a strong interior. Aleem is the guy in there. Year two has been a big improvement for him in both facets of the game. He has a pass rushing arsenal that even I didn't realize that he had. So he is just going to keep getting better. I said that after 3 or 4 years, he's going to beat Kenny Clark for us, and he's well on course to do this. And I know it might generate some fuss, but for me, he does a lot of the work that is not appreciated. And for me, that is why, how well he does it, he gets Most Improved Player. So Aleem McNeil, congratulations. And I'm looking forward to seeing many more years of you here yet.
I agree. We've changed from that 3 to 4-man front. So he's also had to play multiple schemes, different looks, which has also been an adjustment period for him. The Packers game, that's where I think he really stood out. Against AJ Jones and AJ Dillon, he was an absolute beast in the middle. He got, I think, multiple tackles for loss. He pitched a tent in that backfield and was a real stalwart. And as you mentioned, it's a position that don't get enough love. Being a nose tackle, doing a lot of the dirty work, people just think you just have to be big and fat and just get in the way, just swallow it up. But the game's changed. Nose tackles, you can't be Danny Shelton anymore. You can't just sit there and absorb stuff. Don't work like that no more. You've got to be able to penetrate. And if the Lions have not done one thing in the last few years, it's get pressure from the interior. But now we get that. He's able to work centers, get through guards and tackles, work on the pass rush, and he's still one of the youngest players on the team as well. I'm pretty sure he's such a young man compared to a lot of the guys. Still got so much to learn and a lot more progress to be made. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Aleem, and I feel like he is probably one of the best draft picks so far to date of this year regime, because he embodies everything the Lions want to do. If they want to go to having an extra down man on the line and they want to stop the run, it kind of has to go through him. People will still run at him constantly and he'll just get better. But yeah, everyone on that list deserved to be there for different reasons. Like I said, Barnes was a liability last year, but this year got a lot more playing time, saw snaps tick up in different weeks, showed flashes. Goff, fumble Ruski, but this year really cleaned it up, just kept the ball together really well. And yeah, like I say, Anzalone went from Anzalone to anal zone. He comes through the hole, and yeah, he makes you work for it and pay for it. But yeah, it's a really good group of lists, and this was by far the hardest award to pick for me. So many guys. The team last year, a lot of these guys sucked ass, but this year, like, they really took it up a notch.
I love how well. Sorry, Steve, you go.
I was going to say I voted for Aleem as well, just because I've just really seen that progression from him in the second half of the season. Other than the utter aberration of the Panthers game, our run defense has really improved. Shutting down Saquon Barkley. The Jaguars have run over a lot of teams in the second half of the season, but they didn't run over us. And Aleem was massively a part of that. As Ryan said, you just see him come on, but he's not flashy, but he's just plays so hard, an absolute beast. And just the sort of player that we need to make like a cornerstone of the D going forward. So absolutely got my vote.
I mean, the sheer amount of snaps he has to play as a nose tackle. Nose tackles don't play snaps that often because of how big they are, and you have to rotate them in and out. He plays a lot of snaps for such a big guy. Sometimes 70, 80% of snaps he takes, and he shouldn't be, but the motor's still there to go out and do it. I mean, I look back on the video I did on him 2 years ago, and I just love it. Just seeing it come to fruition. He was a massive pick at the time, and yeah, I'm sorry, I'm biased here, but I just love him.
I think the change in scheme really, really helped him, and that's not me saying he didn't put in the effort and he didn't improve himself. I think moving from nose to playing primarily 3-tech really played to his strengths. I think as the nose, as being that primary guy to try and stop the run, although it's a role he can do, I don't think it's his best role. Moving slightly outside and being primarily a bit more of a pass rushing threat than a run stuffer, but he does both, really suited him. And he went from someone who we knew had it, but he hadn't quite fulfilled the promise. We heard all the coaching staff say in the offseason, 2 years running, he's absolutely bullying guys out there, and then to not see it on the field, and then a switch flicked. But halfway through the season, he became an absolute monster. If you can do that for an entire year, he's going to turn heads nationally. He's not there yet, but he will, and that's why he's the most improved player. I went for Anzalone just because the difference is stark with him. The linebackers are so obvious when they're bad, right? But it's that position that just stands out the most. And he started coming out and just making clutch plays. Maybe not on a down-to-down basis was he the most improved, but in those moments where you really needed someone, and, that 4th down against Green Bay really stands out in the last game of the year. But he had several moments like that. Anzalone was my guy, but Aleem is right up there. All right, we'll move it on to Rookie of the Year, and this one is going to Stephen Collins.
Well, isn't it nice that we can actually have a choice of rookies that we like, rookies that have done well after several tough drafts and not a lot of talent coming through in the previous regime's era. We've got 4 great nominations. So we've got James Houston, who out of nowhere has absolutely made an impact and is so much one for the future in terms of his explosiveness. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet, but he has been awesome. Kirby Joseph, again, like a fan favourite in terms of how he's worked, how he's got in the team, has been getting snaps and been making huge plays. I've been saying for a couple of seasons, we really need someone who can make a play on defense. And Kirby Joseph's that man. And yeah, his interceptions of Rodgers will be some of the highlight moments in this season. And then you've got Malcolm Rodriguez. You know, we've had to suffer the Jelani Tavai years. We've had to suffer the Jared Davis years. But Rodrigo is, you know, the fans love him. He dresses crazy. But, you know, he plays so hard. And he's been a huge fan favourite and a great boost to our backfield. So those were the 3 nominations. But the one that has won, I don't know if you want to do a drum roll, Matt. Are we doing drum rolls still? So the Rookie Player of the Year for the Lions is the one and only Aidan Hutchinson, who has absolutely taken us all by storm. I think since Stafford left, every team needs like a hero, like an absolute superhero on the roster. And Hutchinson, you know, we've had Amon-Ra St. Brown last season, who really was our star man, and who just lit it up and played hard and contributed and made clutch plays. But our defense is crying out for someone to step up. And when we invested that pick, obviously we had the second pick last season, I think hearts were in mouths because we had to make sure that pick was a hit. And in terms of what we've got from Aidan Hutchinson, I don't think we could have asked for more. You know, he's instantly a character. Everyone loved him on Hard Knocks in terms of his Billie Jean, but just also being like a big personality and someone who you kind of felt was a leader in the making. But then I think there was a bit of trepidation in terms of what that would translate to on the field. And, you know, it wasn't all plain sailing for Hutch. Anonymous in the Philly game to start with. Then all of a sudden, you know, he kind of comes and makes a massive splash in that Washington game where he takes 3 sacks. But then there was kind of like a lot of not very much for a few weeks. And I think we were all starting to get worried. The production wasn't there. I think against the Dolphins, he had like 1 tackle, no sacks. Even in the first Green Bay game where we kind of ground out that win, you know, like he was a little bit anonymous. He was overplaying. You know, he was getting pushed around. He was just constantly like overrunning the QB and just not timing his pass rush. But oh my God, did we see a completely different player start to emerge in the second half of the season? You know, first of all, there was his interceptions, which was, you know, a fantastic bonus. 3 interceptions, more than Sauce Gardner. And, you know, he made some huge plays, but finishing up with 9.5 sacks, 34 solo tackles. And I think we could all see him getting better and better until that last game against the Packers, where against their supposed, you know, decent offensive line, I mean, he just absolutely ate them up, sacked Rodgers twice, and was a huge component in that win. I don't think this is going to be by far his peak season. I think in 2 seasons' time, he's going to be leading the NFL in sacks. But what he is a huge personality. He's a leader on the field, never say die attitude. Like in terms of how he works and how he absolutely fights each play, never stops on a play, never runs out of gas. An absolutely worthy Rookie of the Year, and I think a massive hope for our future.
Agreed. Like it was weird because, let's say, he went through periods like, remember when he was like playing with his hand in his dirt and the fans were going crazy saying, stand him up, play him in the 2-point stance, like get him off the edge. And then like finally the coaches listened and they kind of kind of like a dog that's trying to get off the lead, but you're too close to the road, and then finally get in the field and you unclip the lead and he just bombs off, and that was it. That was kind of like how Butch was. Like, it kind of freed him. And then you saw him, the relentlessness, like when he was playing through the hip injury and the thigh, and he just won't come out, even though he was totally ineffective. He was limping round, he just wasn't ready, but he just out there and he said, I need to be there. Like I said, the motor's going. He wasn't getting there, but he was trying to be a nuisance. We saw the good, the bad, the fantastic, like where he almost killed David Montgomery at the goal line, almost tore his helmet off on that toss tackle. That was phenomenal. We saw the progression, like you say, overrunning Justin Fields on the touchdown. Where he could have got a sack, taking the bad angle. Goes back and watches it and probably thinks, I was too aggressive. Started the year too aggressive, and then slowly reined it in a bit, dialed it back a bit, picked his moments a little bit better. And then the last few weeks of the season, really came into his own. He was a wrecking machine. Started the year slowly, which is why he probably won't win Defensive Rookie of the Year, because Sauce was a little more consistent throughout the year, but finished with aplomb. And I'd say I'd rather him start cooler and finish hot for next year than the other way around. Like I say, next year we're going to see the finishing. We've seen the motor, we've seen the character, and I think next year is probably in line to take on a little bit more responsibility as well. But yeah, if you'd told me at the start of the year he'll get nearly 10 sacks, 3 picks, fumble recovery, fewer forced fumbles, I'd gladly bit your hand off. I still think, even though people say that the Jags are happy they took Trayvon Walker, I just don't believe it. I know, and they're just not telling the truth, are they? They would swap them in a heartbeat. I know they play different positions, but for an instant impact, you'd expect the kind of play you got from Hutch first overall, and they just didn't deliver that. But yeah, so I was delighted that he felt that. And I feel like as well that probably won the Michigan State fans over. I saw less of that, oh, we can't root for him. He's a Wolverine, like say that kind of thing is now gone. And we've now got our first generational pass rusher since those early Ziggy Answer days. And that's a long time ago. Guys have been and come since then, and they have not delivered. So yeah, I agree. Next year, 13, 14 sacks is very achievable.
So I remember this time last year, I was a Hamilton truther, and I will never shy away from the fact that I was not sold on any of the top guys at edge at the onset of the draft. I got that one wrong. I'm going to admit that. You know, the Lions made the right pick at the end of the day. The intensity that he's brought in, the ethic that has been said, the put his body on that. It's the same with all our draft picks, the way they carry themselves, the way that they keep striving for better, the way that they just keep on going relentlessly, and it works when it comes to it. And for me, Hutch has been that guy. He started, you know, like I said, he had the good game, but then he had the down games, but he learned. No more so than the ability to hold the edge against Justin Fields from game 1 to game 2 with the Bears. There was a massive weakness in his game in the first time when you saw it. The second time, it was gone. This is a guy who watches his tape, finds his flaws, and eradicates them from his game. And as the season's gone on, you've just seen him get more confident. You've seen him start to have more of an impact on games. And as Ryan says, we've not had anyone like this since Ziggy Answer, really. I mean, I was watching that draft the other day just for a bit of nostalgia. I think, what was it, about 2012, 2013? Very long time ago at this point that we drafted him. And the impact that he's had on this team cannot be understated. Everyone around him has benefited, and the whole defensive line seems to have taken from his lead and has upped their game with him. And to the point where I think he should be Rookie of the Year. This conversation is there. I think he should win it. I mean, I know Sauce has been good, but all you have to do, you don't like throwing at Sauce, throw to the other side of the field. He's not impacting games. He's just one little part of the pitch that you can't throw to. An edge rusher who has the impact that he does, you can't bypass that. You're getting it out your hands quicker. You are making more interception opportunities for the rest of your team. You are having an impact on every play from the edge position. And that's what a Rookie of the Year should be about. You know, it's not Sauce's, you know, people don't want to throw at Sauce, fine. You can't avoid Aiden. So I will go one further and say he should be Rookie of the Year in the entire NFL as well as the Lions. But he's a worthy winner here. We drafted him number 2 to have an impact, and he did. And then, as I said, he's just going to keep getting better and better.
And MSU or not, I think There were definitely, you could definitely poke holes in that first half of the season. Even the 3-sack game against Washington, they weren't elite moves, right? So yes, he was getting stats, but I remember halfway through the season, I raised it on the pods. I was like, do we need to have a conversation about specifically his impact rushing the passer? Because it just wasn't there. To see the development the second half of the season and for it to get better every week as the Lions got better as well. And then suddenly with the Packers game, you're seeing him do, well, candidly elite things and flashing things which really get you excited for next year. I think it's where he came from earlier in the season to see that development at all parts of the game, as well as the stats, as well as the impact he had on the rest of the team. I don't think it's a coincidence that we're talking about Ali McNeil as most improved player as we see more talent hit this defensive line as well. So yeah, it's where he came from, I think, and it just is so exciting to think where he can go over the next few years.
I just want to challenge Ant on a point. He said that we've not seen anything like it since Ziggy Ansah. I mean, you're forgetting the Trey Flowers highlight reel years.
Yeah.
wait to get
Surely.
wait to get yourself muted, Steve. He's gone now. He's done. He's yeah. Like
Poor Trey Flowers, man. He's catching strays on a Lions pod in 2023.
Hey, we've not even started on the Scott Daly stuff yet. Matt's not even Matt's not even there. So
sorry, Matt.
Ryan, I think we should move swiftly on to your next one. Defensive.
Or not. We can hang around if you want. We took some more. It won't take us long to go through his highlight package. Probably about as long as that video you did at the start of the episode. Maybe not even that long.
Ryan, Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep. This was a good award. This was a vastly improved unit from the year before. Like I said, this was rookies, veterans alike. There was some real injection of talent into the defense this year. Whether it was Kirby, Aaron, I am your father Jones. You've got Aiden, smooth criminal Hutchinson. You've got the God of Thunder himself, Alex Anzalone. Like, there was some real guys here that really made a difference. And there were guys that we brought off waivers. Like I say, we got the commissioner, so we got Kaminsky, got Deshaun Elliott, who hits like a tow truck. The defense really came on in strides, and down the line, it really sorted out some games for us. So, I think I've forgotten the winner.
We
It's
just
the
announced
winner of
him.
the same award.
It's Trey Flowers.
The winner of this award, like I say, I realise we'll read smoothly on. Yeah, is Billie Jean himself. It's Mr. Thriller, the smooth criminal. It's Aiden Hutchinson. I say the injection of talent, the pass rush arsenal that came into its picture later in the year, and the ability to learn from his mistakes, go back and watch his film, decide to do things a little bit differently, which was very evident, as Ant said, in between those Chicago games where he looked like a different guy that knew what he was doing and what he was going to face. And the future is incredibly bright. Like I say, he seems like a super charismatic guy. And right now, he takes no plaudits. But I think next year you'll start to see leaderships now. His next game, I think he's going to learn. He will start to be the guy that motivates, that rallies, that loses his temper as well. We've not seen that yet, but I feel like he will be someone that really won't take shit. So that I look forward to the future.
Just on Hutch, I mean, you come in year one, and maybe this is a reflection of who's opposite him, but your very first year in the league, and you are the equal most double-teamed player in the NFL. Equal with Myles Garrett. Micah Parsons didn't come close. Zadarius Smith didn't come close. DeMarcus Lawrence was almost half as much. Trayvon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Trey Hendrickson, Nick Bosa, half as much as Aiden Hutchinson. This guy is facing double teams 30% of the time. It's an astonishing rate. And maybe his pass rush win rate suffers a little bit for that. But the fact that he actually, in the midst of all of that, managed to actually learn something, adjust his technique, as people were saying before, not over pursue when it comes to quarterback play. When it came down the stretch, it meant perhaps not even pass rushing, but playing contain, holding that gap. He learned massively. Some people were saying about Aiden Hutchinson, he's the finished product. He's good, he's polished, but his ceiling is just about where he is coming out of college. He's not going to get any better. He'll be fine, he'll be steady, but he's not a second overall pick. He got fundamentally better all the way through the season. And the sky is the limit for this guy. Like, what people think they were getting out of, who's the journeyman former Houston #1 overall pick? Who's a waste?
Ian Clowney.
Clowney. Hutchinson provides the run-stopping ability that Clowney does, but provides the sack-making ability of someone worth twice what Clowney has brought to the league in his career so far. Hutchinson is the real deal.
Yeah, and I mean, Trayvon Walker, 3.5 sacks last year. People wanted Kayvon Thibodeau. This is the guy who was doing snow angels next to a quarterback. It just knocked out an absolute trash bag of a human being. Like, Hutch is our man. Like, I'm so glad we got him. I'm so glad that he was our choice.
Right, we were on back-to-back with Hutch, so we'd better move it on, and it's to Tom for the Offensive Player of the Year.
All right. Drum roll ready, but let's first go to the nominations. So, nominations. The best quarterback the Lions have had since Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff. The most versatile receiver in the league, Amon-Ra St. Brown. The leader of the hidden village of the Den, Jamal Williams. The best right tackle in the league, Penei Sewell. The best center in the league, Frank Ragnow. What a string of nominees. And the winner of Offensive Player of the Year 2022 is... Jared Goff. Maybe not a surprise to many, but what a list of players we got going there. Yeah, I'm sure many would have voted for this. I mean, Jared Goff, 4,438 yards, 6th in the league, 29 touchdowns, 5th in the league. He was an absolute stud this year. And I think I'm right in saying, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, he won this last year as well.
Oh, yeah, you put me on the spot here. I think you're right.
Right, well, you worked that through, but it's easy to think about, obviously, Goff's taken a step forward, the offense has taken a step forward, but potentially back-to-back years he's been leading this offense. I was certainly not in the Goff camp coming into when he came into Detroit. I've loved everything about him since he's got here. I think, Rye, you mentioned it when you were talking about Man of the Year. We'll talk a lot around what he's done on the field, but what he's done off the field in the community is not to be sniffed at either. It's incredible what he's done. So on the field, he's obviously led this offense to being, frankly, one of the best in the league, especially on its day. And yeah, I'm gonna open it up there because I'm sure many of you have some Goff thoughts.
Since you asked the question, the joint winners of Offensive Player of the Year last year were Jared Goff and Penei Sewell.
Okay.
Last year, I was not complimentary to Goff at all. I think everyone knows that.
No, that was in relation to the graphic this year, Matt.
How do you mean?
It's still shared. It's not a Jared Goff graphic. It's a Jared Goff and Penei Sewell graphic. I think we did a tiebreaker.
I just went into the 2020. Oh.
See what I mean?
I do see what you mean. My bad.
I thought Amon-Ra won it last year.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm being an idiot. Well done,
Thank
Steve.
you.
You got it right. Sorry. Where did that come from? That old.
Don't worry, Steve. I'll stick up for you.
He has one job. He literally has one job, to keep control of this thing.
I know, and as a
Who are all of
teacher,
you?
as a school teacher, you'd think he'd be organised as well. So, I don't know. But in regards to this, so I didn't vote for Goff. Not because I didn't like Goff this year, but I think there is someone, and I've just mentioned it went down to a tiebreaker, and I'll say it. I voted for Penei. I think he's getting completely overlooked. He is in his second year as tackle, playing on the side that he didn't at college. Never been a right tackle, not since high school. He's already an all-pro. in 2 years, and that is playing in a position where the right guard position has been an absolute, clown show for a lot of the parts. There's been guys coming in, guys coming out. He's not got to play with Hal very much. So to be able to hold up one side of that line whilst being fully healthy, and I think playing nearly every snap this season, for the most part, amongst a really dodgy situation at right guard next to him, to already be an all-pro, for me, that is what your offensive player of the year is. They run through him. He's the heartbeat of that team, and he's the. If you ask them, if people ask what's new Detroit, you point at Penei Sewell. He is new Detroit. He is everything that we want to epitomize. So they're both worthy winners. Just personally, not mine, but I think Penei needs a lot more credit than he's getting. People just assume that he's good, I think, because of all the hype that came out. But there's assumed being good, and then there's getting to be good. We've seen a lot of first-round picks in recent years who have been awful. He is not one of them. He's, like I say, he's going to be an all-pro next year, for sure, if someone else doesn't have a ridiculously good season like Lane Johnson.
Well, as I was saying, last year, I shit all over Goff, didn't I? For the most part, like I say, when the trade happened, I was not very complimentary. But if you'd have told me that at the start of last season that I'd be very happy to going into 2023 and feel very comfortable as Goff as a starter, I wouldn't have believed you. Like I said, I was very much in the camp that he is a bridge. I don't care how much we struggle. We just got to bide our time and get through the cap hits. And he's just got to play average. But this year, like, something clicked. I don't know what it is or how it was or what happened. Like, say, how the scheme changed or his understanding of the playbook, or him and Ben Johnson just like kind of totally on the same page. But he just looked like a different guy. Like I say, he looks happier. Like I say, he's settled down. He's in the community. He's now to be wed. Like I say, he's adopted the lifestyle that he's now got. When he was first traded here, it was probably a big shock to the system. Go from California to Detroit. The first year playing here was probably worlds apart of what he was used to, what he was expecting. But he seems a lot more grounded. He seems happier. He's cleaned up the turnovers, which was the biggest thing to me. Like, how many times did he fumble last year? Was it like 9? It might have been 9 or 10. Lost the majority of them. Killed momentum. He would walk into sacks like Sleepy Gary from Rick and Morty, like he's playing in pajamas. This year, much more pocket presence. Just a bit more nous about him. He'd spin the right way. He'd extend drives with his legs. He'd dive. He'd slide. Like, he looked far more polished, like the guy that took the rounds to the Super Bowl. So for me, he's come on leaps and bounds. And I don't care whether the offense runs through him, runs through Ben. They're both here. I feel really good about it. This feels like a joint award. But yeah, going into 2023, I feel much better about the position we are in the year ago. And that kind of starts with him. So for me, I'd say probably a well-worthy winner of the award. So his future now looks a lot more interesting. I say, what we do with him now, there are a lot more options on the table. He could very well be the future of Detroit Lions football for the next 4 or 5 years. He couldn't have said that a year ago. Right now, it's very much on the table.
Yeah, I think it's great to see how well he's done. I mean, it was just a rubbish situation. He got dumped in here, and it was a rubbish situation in terms of the team he came to as well. This team was not good last year and did not have much resources dedicated to helping him last year. But he's taken everything on board. He seems to have, again, another one who's adopted the city. You see everything, just like the way he dresses, the way he acts. He seems a lot more rough and gruff and Detroitimized now, if you call it something like that. But he seems to have taken on that gritty mantra, and he finally seems to have taken over this offense. He's a leader on the offense now, and I feel, because I said many times, it felt like he wasn't the leader on there. It felt like the offense wasn't going through him at one time, and I think at one time that was true. But I think he's won a lot of people round. I think he's won nearly everyone around at this point. So yeah, he does deserve it at the end of the day.
And why don't we move it on and also announce the MVP as well?
Oh, was that mine? Yeah, one tick. Most valuable player.
Right, you need some like lift music or something that every time Ant's getting it up, that'd be yeah.
I'll be back in
Beg
one
pardon.
second, guys.
I'm doing the Twitter graphics as well here at this point. I'm doing like 10 different jobs here.
Right.
Oh, play the Burger King advert song that's
Oh, no.
annoying the living daylights out of me. Right, so next up we are on most valuable players. So again, a lot of very worthy candidates for this one. So we've mentioned him a few times in the last few awards. Aiden Hutchinson, the value he has brought to this team in just 1 year since being drafted is untold. What he's done to the edge room, to the defense, just to the culture around here. Aiden's absolutely worthy of a claim towards the MVP. Amon-Ra St. Brown, we've not really mentioned him much this evening, which is surprising given how big a player he is on this team, but Amon-Ra continues to ascend up the ranks of the rankings for wide receivers in the NFL. To my mind, he is already a top 10 receiver in the NFL at this point, purely because of not just the work he does as a receiver, but the blocking ability, the nitty-gritty side of it to be able to help his team. He just does everything and he keeps getting better, and he's broken streaks for the amount of receptions he had, the amount of yards he's had. He is invaluable to this team. Penei Sewell, obviously, one of the all-pros on this team. He's already there. He's only going to keep getting better. He's a generational talent, and generational guys have claims to be the MVP of this side. Jared Goff, obviously, when it comes to the most valuable players on the team, your quarterback is always going to be the most important position on the side. And as we've just been talking about with Jared, his rise this season has been incredible, and he has led one of the most dominant and, best looking offenses in the entire NFL. He's not been turning the ball over. He's been slinging it all over. He's been running the offense with gusto. And then Jamal Williams, of course, we've already talked about him a lot at length already, but the leadership he's brought in and off the field, what he's done on the field as well, he has really taken this team to a new level this season. So we've got Hutchinson, St. Brown, Sewell, Goff, and Williams. But only one can win. So the MVP of the Detroit Lions for 2022 is our quarterback, the man of the moment. Jared Goff goes back to back, just like Aiden Hutchinson. And it is very hard to argue a case against this, as has already been said. The amount of people he has proven wrong, he has probably proven every single person in Detroit wrong, in our own fan base, as well as a lot of people in outside spheres as well. To come back from that year, we were talking about drafting another quarterback this time last year. The media were asking about it, and you just didn't know what was going to happen. He stood up. He has played really well all season. Even during the 1-6 slump, he was slinging it around. And, I'm just completely and utterly happy for this guy, just after all the rubbish he's been through, to finally landed somewhere where he's now appreciated and respected, and he's resurrecting his career. He's absolutely the MVP for this team this year. He is the face of the franchise. We've forgotten about number 9 pretty much from before now, because we have a guy who is doing the work for us. So well done, Jared Goff, Detroit Lions' most valuable player in the eyes of us here at ROTL Lions UK. I will hand it out to the panel now.
Yeah, a guy that's never hid, like absolutely, even like in the toughest times, has never hid, has never turned into the check down king a la Kirk Cousins when things start to go badly and he faces adversity. He will still throw a long bomb when he can, when someone's open. Much more accurate, much more composed. And I think we have to call out the O-line for kind of like absolutely giving him that chance and to kind of like play his best. We've just talked about it, but like Ragnow, Sewell, Decker have been immense this season in terms of protecting him. And I think Goff's just a guy who, has got that character. He doesn't seem like your kind of square-jawed, gritty. guy who's going to take all those hits. But my God, he's tough. He's taken some big hits and just got back up again and thrown a completion. I think everyone has warmed to Goff this season at various points of the season, but no one can argue that he wasn't the top 10 NFL quarterback in the second half of the season. And to be saying that now is just incredible considering where we've come from. I have missed some of Ryan's more explosive and violent rants, which were highly entertaining when he went into a Goff-inspired meltdown at various points. But in terms of balancing things out, yeah, we've lost some of those rants, but we've seen some really good quarterback play.
We've suffered for it, I know, like I say, nothing right. But the way I look at MVP is that if we lost Sewell, we flip over Decker, we put in like Skipper, serviceable. Hutch can't go, Aquara goes in, Kaminsky. Like I say, like guys like that. Jamal can't go, Swift, Justin Jackson, serviceable. If Goff can't go and Sudfeld goes in, your house of cards falls down. It's over before it's begun. Like I say, there's just no one that can replicate to a percentage what he can do. Like I say, no one can command this offense like we do. Blau couldn't. TB12 couldn't. The laser show, he couldn't. Sudfeld can't. So yeah, only one guy can start the engine of this car and can keep it in gear. So yeah, that's just how it had to be. But yeah, they all bring something different and they're all very valid.
Yeah, after such a promising second half of the season, it's a shame he's going to be replaced by CJ Stroud in a few months. But no, I'm kidding, everyone. Come on now.
Jesus Christ.
Right, you make a really good point, and this is, I guess, this where it comes down to interpretation a little bit as well. Because if you treat MVP in terms of wins and losses and impact if they miss it, it should be the quarterback every time, right? If Goff goes out, we win probably 1 game, 2 games, I don't know, but it's going to be awful. I went in a different direction and I actually went for St. Brown, and that's because in terms of where he is, I think he is the best player on this roster. I think when he is not in the offense, it dramatically changes what we can do. And yeah, I just also, I mean, take this game. He's a receiver. We know what he can do catching the ball. Lane Johnson, tough to argue that Sewell was the best right tackle in the league when Lane Johnson was there. I thought he was second best, but Lane Johnson, absolute stud. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a better run blocking grade on PFF than him this year. And that's not adjusted for tackles versus receivers. That is the job he had to do. St. Brown had a better run blocking grade than Lane Johnson. Tristan Wirfs, second best, apparently, right tackle in the NFL. He had a better run blocking grade than him too. What he's been able to do to impact the offense in the run game, in the pass game, you see it in those games he missed earlier in the season when he wasn't there for the Lions, the impact it can have. I just think we've just kind of, a little bit like with Sewell, we've accepted that he's brilliant and we don't talk about it that much. And with Goff, it's like rightfully because he's taken his lumps, but we see the improvement and we feel the need to call it out. Whereas St. Brown has been incredible all year. I'd say probably even above Sewell for me personally in terms of all year at an elite level. Sewell has been in the very, very good level all year and with some elite games. St. Brown has been elite at the top of the PFF rankings pretty much every game. So Goff, absolutely a deserving winner. But yeah, St. Brown for me just had a fantastic season and similar to Sewell, almost we're not talking about it enough.
I'll speak on both of those players just because I think they were the clear top 2 for me. Amon-Ra, I think it's the chemistry between the two of them that makes it work so well. Patrick Mahomes wouldn't highlight Amon-Ra as well as Jared Goff does. Like, the two of them are a symbiotic relationship and they are so good together. But you're right, Amon-Ra is the heartbeat of this team. How many slot receivers make 1,000 yards a year when they don't have that home run speed? Like, not many of them. When you get 1,000-yard seasons, generally it's because you actually do threaten people for 80-yard touchdowns every now and again. And Amon-Ra ain't that guy. But he's so reliable. catches so many balls and is so effective when he isn't catching the ball that he is so valuable to this team. But Goff, he's made a believer out of me a little bit, and a part of my heart still won't let me go there yet, but he's doing things I didn't think he was capable of. And you know what? People might throw a game manager moniker out there. Game managers win championships. Sorry, people, but like, you have to be able to manage games to get there. You have a look at Josh Allen yesterday. Did not manage that game. Sorry, he may be one of the best talents in the league, and God knows everyone here knows how much of a fan I am of Josh Allen. But Jared Goff would have done better than Josh Allen in that spot. He really, really would. I had some stats on Goff as well this season, just to highlight, quite compared to the rest of the league, how good he's been. 5th in QBR, 6th in passing yards, tied 5th in passing touchdowns, and 4th in net yards per pass attempt. People think he can't throw deep. He's 4th in net yards per pass attempt. Absolutely incredible performance from a guy who was seeing ghosts 18 months ago. You know, first few games of that first season here, he was spinning into sacks, running away from pressure that wasn't there. It was horrific. Total turnaround, and he deserves all the plaudits.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, in these playoffs, he'd have done a lot better than others. If the Dallas Cowboys had Jared Goff under center yesterday, they'd have won. They would have. I think, this has proven that Goff is a lot higher up the quarterback rankings than people thought. There's now no question. He's better than Prescott. A lot better. Because of his ability to keep the ball with his own team. Not make any panic decisions, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I think he's made a believer of a lot of us. You don't really see renaissances like this very often. So you really have to appreciate them when they happen.
All right, just a little bit of breaking news from Pride of Detroit. The Detroit Lions are tied 10th best odds for the Super Bowl next year.
Get them tickets, lads.
Oh, man. Can you imagine doing Super Bowl in February and then draft in Detroit 2 months later? Picking 32nd. That would be sweet as hell.
I'll be paying off the debts for years. But it'll be totally worth it.
If we're picking 32nd, we might not make it. That's a long day.
It's a long day.
I hope we trade out next year for future picks. Given Matthew's penchant for liking future first round picks, I hope they do it next year.
Right, that is the end of the staff voted awards, but we did have 2 votes entirely done by you guys, the viewers, and we had lots and lots of votes coming in for these awards. So really, really grateful to you guys for getting onto the Google Forms and getting your votes in. The first one is the fans moment of the year, and Ash is going to reveal who has won that.
So again, it's similar to Player of the Year, but with a few extra moments, such as Hutch singing Billie Jean, which was a classic. I'm surprised that Kabinda's Intense Stare didn't also make it, considering how much of a good gift that was.
That was definitely GIF of the year.
Yeah, that's definitely GIF of the year, maybe. So we've got, obviously, Hutch singing Billie Jean, his interception against Chicago, the 4th-and-1 to ice the game at Lambeau, Brock Wright's game-winning 51-yard touchdown versus the Jets, CJ Moore's fake punt versus Minnesota, the Saul catch, and Jameson Williams' first touchdown on his first ever NFL touch. Again, many great moments. I guess a lot of people know that I would have a soft spot for CJ Moore's fake punt because of my love for special teams and him in particular, but there could only be one winner, and it won Player of the Year. It is the Saul 3rd and 7 conversion against Minnesota.
Hold it up a bit higher. There you go.
I've even drew a little picture of it because of how hyped I was for it. Because Ben Johnson is one of the best innovators on offense this year. The only thing he could do to make me love him even more is to finally give me that Aleem McNeil fullback dive that I've been calling for. But just to set this up earlier in the game with having him in motion on the counter run, to then use that same look on such a crucial down and to trust Saul and Goff as he did was just amazing.
Be careful, Ash. You'll be getting some calls for offensive coordinator interviews. There's a lot of vacancies out there. That's where I'm going.
Oh, no. I hope so. That'll pay a lot more than Sainsbury's does.
Oh man, you cracked me up. Yeah, he got 50.9% of the vote, so he got a majority of your votes out there. Every single moment at least got one vote, which I'm kind of happy with. It means that our shortlist at least had some viability. Partly for me, and it's the one that actually got the least votes. But it's the Billie Jean moment meant so much to me. Just watching a rookie go out there with that confidence and the guy's reaction to that, it just warmed my heart. It made me so excited for what was to come this year.
It didn't for me. It brought back awful memories of my first away game on the coach, singing "Careless Whisper" by George Michael, and they made rookies like perform on the way back. And I think I was a few beers in, and I got stage fright halfway through.
You didn't sing that.
Oh, right.
Hey, save it for the Roar of the Lions karaoke.
Oh, yeah, true.
It can't be as bad as Ash's singing Barbie Girl. It can't.
Don't know what you mean. I'm great at singing Aqua. God.
There was plenty of chat in the chat when we were talking about Play of the Year for the Brock Wright Jets touchdown, folks. And that was
immense.
2 minutes to go, 4th down and 1, around midfield, gutsy call, misdirection. How many yards of separation? Might have been 10. Ridiculous play.
And I think the Sewell one, it was uplifting, but things were going right in that game for the most part. Whereas the Jets game, it was like, oh, okay, we fucked it. Great. It's over. Brilliant. So I think that came more out of nowhere to some extent.
True, and it should be up there as a moment just purely because it was me and Matt watching, and I remember him breaking his microphone with how loud his shout was.
There was some great special teams plays. There was some great like fakes this year. So there was some good stuff on special teams as well.
All right, I think it's time to go to our last award of the night, which is the Fans Player of the Year. And there's no criteria for this award. It's on whatever the fans wanted it to be. So if you wanted it to be like the Walter Payton Man of the Year for the person in the community, it can be. If you wanted it to be anyone you wanted it, offensive, defensive, rookie, comeback, most improved, whatever thing was most important to you, that is what you're encouraged to vote for. The nominees for this one were Jared Goff, Offensive Player of the Year, MVP, and viable Most Improved Player candidate. Amon-Ra St. Brown, as we've heard, potentially the MVP by most other metrics. Aiden Hutchinson, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, and Sackmaster Extraordinaire. James Houston makes his appearance here. He may have only played just over 100 snaps, but he got the second most sacks of rookies in the NFL this season, and he's very good at the hop, skip, and jump, I've heard as well. And Jamal Williams, he's just all character, isn't he? He's all character, but he's all production as well. The man with the rookie rushing touchdown now in Detroit. All of them worthy winners of this, and it was really close in the vote between two particular people who have got the fans really electrified. When we canvassed for nominations for this, only one name came out, and then when the votes came in, it was really close, but he did get over the line. The Fans Player of the Year is... It's Jared Goff. He's swept the major awards tonight. He really has turned it around. The ship is sailing firmly forwards, and the fans have recognised it too. Jared Goff, Fans Player of the Year.
I must say I'm surprised at that. I did not think Goff would get it. I thought Jamal would get it. But it shows how much public perception has changed in 8 to 10 months. Twitter was a dumpster a year ago, and yeah, they were ragging on Goff a lot, and it was a bad place to be, and it didn't help. So yeah, it shows just how quickly things can change. The outlook of a player and what the fans perceive him to be can really flip on a coin just like that. So yeah.
I think the main lesson is don't ever doubt Brad Holmes again. It just seems to find the players who have the attitude and the determination to overcome any situation. And there's nothing harder than reclaiming a quarterback, who's fallen on hard times and, his confidence is shot and gone. So very rarely you're able to get them guys back and playing at a level which some might say was better than his LA Rams days, which I think it is. He's probably playing the best football of his career now, which is testament to how they've managed to bring him back. So I was surprised when I put the thing up on Twitter for the vote first time. I put in my own 2p worth and said, "Oh, I think it's going to be Penne," and all I got back was, "No, it's Goff. No, it's Goff. No, it's Goff." I'm like, what the hell is this? I actually felt bad at the end. I'm like, oh god, I feel bad for suggesting Penne now, but it's just testament to the work he's done that everybody, fans, pundits, whoever, he's won them over. It's been a rocky road, but it's great to see. We also, when he first came in, everyone wanted him to succeed. I think just people doubted that he had the ability to come back and do it. But he's proven us all wrong. Fair play to him, and yeah, a very, very worthy winner again.
Pride of Detroit on Twitch has just said, life goal karaoke with the Roar of the Lions fellas. I'm going to try and set up a pre-draft karaoke party while we're in Detroit in 2024.
Yes.
This is a democracy. Don't we get a vote on this?
I vote yes.
Unfortunately not. Whilst Matt was distracted with the main award, there was a lot of karaoke chat going on YouTube as well. So we may have opened something there. I apologize.
I've seen that you've volunteered for some Backstreet Boys.
I mean, you got to, haven't you? Getting all white out of it.
Oh, all 6 of us have got to do it. It's got to be like from Brooklyn Nine-Nine on Zoom. I mean, come on.
Yes.
Who does not want to see that?
Yes.
Well, so just to be clear, what I said was if we get to 1,000 YouTube subs, that sounds like a pretty good reward. So,
we'll do a remake of E17 and we'll try and get Christmas number 1.
Hang on. No. Stop writing checks. Stop writing checks. Stop writing checks here.
Who's going to be the Brian Harvey?
Baby.
Stop writing checks here. We're going to have to cash them now.
Surely a bunch of people are going to be like, who the hell are E17? But, we'll cover that elsewhere.
I feel like I'm getting pimped out for subs here. Well, I guess if that's what it takes.
The OnlyFans is coming. Folks, it's been a terrific year, and the awards and the nominees have really shown that it's been spectacular, and I couldn't have imagined it. The best year of Lions fandom for at least half a decade, if not more. Thoughts on anything that we've talked tonight? The players, the moments, the fans. I mean, filling up Ford Field for the first time in a long time. We had the biggest increase in stadium attendance in the league this year.
All I'll say is the last 2 times we've done these awards, it's taken us about 2 minutes to decide the nominations and the winners. This is the first year where it was actually incredibly difficult to decide most of them. So that's always a good thing. When you're struggling to hand out awards straight away, that shows improvement in your team. So it was a lovely headache to have this season. I'm not going to lie, the previous ones, it's just been way too easy to predict who's going to get it. So, yeah, this team is going places. And I think this time next year, we might have to add MVP for the playoffs award. Who knows? I mean, just speculating here, but I feel like that might be on the award show next year.
I mean, next year we'll have to delay these to March because we're making the Super Bowl, obviously. We can't hold them in this month, can we?
Oh, God.
That's when the OnlyFans get started. We'll need it to fund it.
Oh, man.
The OnlyFans comes when we win a playoff game. Is that it?
It's time to oil and.
Now we really might be writing checks that we can't cash.
Yeah. I feel like I'm getting the short end of the stick here, and it's at my expense. Hey, at least one thing, we've all got mics now to sing prettily.
I mean, that was the only reason I got this.
Don't you think
Really?
Tom looks like Bruce Buffer? Like we're in the UFC.
Believe me, this microphone is not going to help. No one wants to hear this more clearly sing.
Surely we can get some auto-tune software.
I don't know, YouTube chat. Would any of you like to hear Matt sing a solo on his own? I think so. And no disabling the live chat, Matt.
I Want to Break Free by Queen.
I need to see that
You've got
subscriber
to-
number
you've got-
go
yeah.
up just for this.
Yeah, and you've got to dress up like Freddie did as well if you do that.
He's dressed up as a snooker referee tonight, though.
I really think I look like Ernie from the basketball coverage, but
I don't
NBA on
think
TNT.
you don't look as cool. Well, I don't know. It's a nice, pretty little bow tie, though.
I had prettier.
He looks like a shrink. With the books behind him, it looks like he's going to hypnotise me to stop smoking.
So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people, including Ash. Well done, Ash. That 4 people wanted him Matt sing solo so far. So
Well, if you want it, subscribe, guys. Like, this works both ways.
Hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button.
If you get us to 1,000, I will reluctantly admit to do a karaoke. Fine.
And actually,
There we are.
Talking about our race to 1,000, we want to get there by the draft if we can. We're about 220 shy. And we discussed ways in which we can perhaps encourage people to do that if you're not a subscriber already. And Ryan, you had some great ideas at 900 and 1,000 subs for a mini and then a big giveaway. I don't know if you have anything to hand, but what might be up for grabs if people say get subscribed to the YouTube channel?
Oh, let me get up on top.
I'm pretty sure he offered a day with himself if we got to 1,000. Yeah, one day with Ryan.
Eclipse helmet. We've got a Lem Barney mini signed helmet. We are basically in my menagerie right here, right now. So there is stuff. But what people want, I've got Reggie Bush signed jersey. I've got Swift. I got all sorts of stuff. I'd say so. Yeah, happy to give some stuff away.
So there will be giveaways. We're going to do a mini one at 900 subs. We're about 120 away from it now. And thanks to Pride of Detroit for going over to YouTube and subscribing as well. I think that Jeremy's really keen for that that karaoke to happen. So we'll see how successful that is. But yeah, 900 subs, 1,000 subs, there will be mini and a big giveaway. Open to, I mean, I think we can say at least US and UK people, but maybe and Europe as well. So I don't know if we can get it further afield than that, reasonably priced, but I'm sure we can do something. So
Wherever.
Yeah. So
Papua New Guinea, wherever you live in the Caribbean, the Pacific, I'll find someone that'll seaboat out to you.
And we'll all sign it for you.
And then are we all in agreement if we get to 1,500 and gets oiled up, right? I think we'll just take a majority vote on that.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
It seems glistening.
You live and die by democracy.
Bet you look like a gladiator from the 90s show.
There might be a hostile takeover once we reach 1,000. Turn from democracy to dictatorship.
All right, I think that's gonna wrap it for us guys here. We've been getting questions all the way through the show, and we're going to answer them on the after the show now. So Q&A, there's several questions in there at the moment. If you're on the live chats and you want to ask us some questions, get them in now. But if you're on the audio show, thank you for listening to my favourite day of the year. I think our favourite day of the year, to honour the year that was and to perhaps have a glimpse ahead to the year that will be to come. What else do we have to say? Next episode for the college podcast is going to be on the defensive side of the Senior Bowl rosters. That'll be later on this week. This time next week, our episode will be on the 2022 draft class and how it did in more detail, and a GM review on Brad Holmes. How did he do this year and how is he doing to date? Don't forget to follow us on our socials on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The group of Worldwide Fans, Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide, and the website RoarTheLionsUK.com.
And I was about to say, don't forget we have a show this Thursday as well. So
yes,
yeah.
We have a special guest.
We have a special guest on Thursday, so you'll have to come and join us Thursday. We're looking forward to speaking to our first guest of the off season. They're going to be many, but yeah, we'll be doing a show on Thursday as well.
Yeah, so don't forget to join us for that too. But if you're on the audio show, we will see you next time. Come join us on YouTube and Twitch next time the show continues. But for now, let's go Lions, One Pride.
One pride.
FTP.
FTP.
Recording stopped.
Right, that is that, and I'm just posting out the last graphic for the fan awards. First question from the chat is from Det Fanman, and he asked, does Chark resign? And if not, how early do we draft wide receiver? If Chark doesn't resign, how high does wide receiver get in the priority list for this offense?
Sign him up. Absolutely sign him up. Like, why spend draft capital on a wide receiver when we know he's good? Like, let's sign him up and let's spend let's focus the draft on the defense this season.
Yeah, sign him up, and then in the draft, we draft Puka Nasua as the long-term X option here. We develop him, and then when the day comes that he goes, we've got his replacement ready-made. So that's 100% what I do.
No, we can't afford him. He's going to want a 2 or 3 year deal. He's going to want security for him and his family. We're going to be priced out. So I'm not getting into a bidding war with him. I'm going to cast him. I'm going to pass on him. And then rounds 3 or 4, when we've got a few guys in defense, then I'm going to go for a receiver. But my phone's dying, so I'll speak to you all soon, guys.
Cheers, Ryan.
I'll see you on Wednesday.
He's going to be an interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what money he gets, whether it's with the Lions or elsewhere, because I don't think there's going to be a huge bidding war for him based on this year. And maybe he means more to the Lions than he does other teams. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, if he comes back at the right price, great. I definitely wouldn't, not even overpay it. I definitely wouldn't want him at 10 million for 3 years or something like that. But that's just me.
You actually got very close to what Spot Tracker predicted him. Because I was just quickly Googling that. They've got him at 3 years, 28.7, which roughly works out to about 9.5 mil a year. So I'd personally re-sign him. And I'm closely following Ant, except for not just Booker, but there's obviously Franklin from UTSA, or if you want to hold off a year, there is a certain 6'7" receiver who had over 200 yards in a bowl game this year.
You're right.
I just love the way that Ryan McCluskey, that the man from Yorkshire, straight away like, no, we can't afford him. Don't pay him. And then has to go because his phone's run out of credit.
Oh man! On Chark, sign him up and sign all the priority free agents. I know it doesn't always go that way, but Kaminsky, Elliott, Chark, get them all back in here. This team was in the final 9 games of the year 7th in DVOA. Like, not even fringe playoff caliber, like proper legitimate contender caliber. And that's with this defense not firing on all cylinders. Like, bring everyone back, restock it with a few draft picks of quality, maybe make a splash free agent signing if you can restructure one player, perhaps, and say, you know what, it's similar to last year. We're hoping the draft picks also contribute. The recent draft picks are going to get better, hopefully. All the coaching staff is still in place. We go again. And why not be a top 5 team? Why not? Especially in this NFC. This team could be a top 3 NFC team. You look at Philly, you look at San Francisco, and they're probably here to stay for the next couple of years. There's no reason why we can't be better than Dallas. And they're number 3. And it ain't close. Like, no one's close to Dallas at 3 right now. We should be there.
Just very changing the subject very quickly. We were talking about like Ben Johnson and how he's staying. And the crappy coaches' jobs coming up. Do we think McCarthy's gone at Dallas?
Yes.
No. Jerry Jones doesn't like admitting mistakes, and they made the playoffs, so they're not getting rid.
I think if they could get someone like Sean Payton, maybe, but otherwise, I don't see it.
Because if they do get rid of him, then that starts another coaching carousel.
Maybe, but if I think they get rid of McCarthy, they'll just promote Kellen Moore. He's been there. Ben Johnson's been getting like head coach and stuff for the past couple of years. I think it's easy for them to do that. Or if they're scared of losing
Dan Quinn there and all.
Yeah, I was about to say, or if they're losing Dan Quinn, they're scared of losing Dan Quinn, put him up, even though he didn't do that great of a job in Atlanta. So hopefully he's learned. But yeah, they've got 2 decent coordinators who could both make the transition up, I think.
Dan Quinn did do a great job in Atlanta, but still made the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
Like, some great head coaches never make the Super Bowl. I know that that's a very cheap point, but that Atlanta team probably outperformed how good they were, and I'd put that firmly at the feet of Dimitrov, the GM. Like, Quinn did better with the talent than he had. I think that he's been lambasted for being the guy that lost the 28-3, and actually that overlooks all of the evidence that was put before him before that. He's a really good coach.
I just don't want to see Peyton get a job anywhere. The Saints have been cap dodging for years, and I don't want them to get loads of picks just for a coach they don't even have no more. I want them to suffer. No cap picks, no money. That's what you get for kicking the can down the road all the time.
But
just hold off 1 year. Hold off 1 year, and you can have him for free.
You were high on the wagon though of first round picks cost hella money. If they're in cap hill, them getting first round picks might actually hurt their man.
Yeah, but then they'll just cut some of their vets and get new guys, won't they? I just don't want them to have. I want them to have to suffer with all the bad contracts they've got. So that's just me. I hope if you're a team waiting for, just wait for him. Just do what the Texans do. Get a 1 year guy in. Don't pay 2 firsts, 2 seconds, whatever stupid amount of money. Because you got to pay him $25 million anyhow to coach you. Just wait.
We'll go to the next question. It's from Alex Kimura, and he asks, and this will be for the college-focused people who've done their research, which is not me. Please, can you talk about Jack Campbell and what he would bring to the Detroit Lions?
I know it's capping out, but I've actually got a feature for him on our college show coming up, so you can find out there. I've done a bit, but just at the base level, he's a Dan Campbell guy. Like 100% a Dan Campbell guy. He's another undersized linebacker, but really good in coverage. Kind of what we need, but not. I don't know. I'm still a little bit undersold on there, but he's a Dan Campbell guy through and through, and I reckon he'll be well up on their list of guys they're looking at if they are. But you might have to pay a heavy price for him, and goes against the whole mantra. Does Holmes draft linebackers early? Does draft safeties early, etc. But yeah, I've got more in-depth stuff on him, but overall, he'll be on their radar for sure, and maybe someone we should look at.
All right, I'll move it on. Geordie Manchin asks, who do you all think is the best player per dollar on the Detroit Lions?
James Houston, 100%. The value you're getting for production there is insane. For the second, yeah, I think dollar on dollar, you're getting stupid amount of value for him.
Amon-Ra St. Brown is his average per year contract is $1 million. Houston is $700K. Now, don't get me wrong, that was seriously impressive what Houston did, but if Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the best receivers in the league and we're paying him $1 million a year. For contrast, Penei Sewell, who we'd say is a similar level of player probably to St. Brown, is on $6 million a year. So he's 6 times the amount. For me, it's St. Brown, hands down. Now, I'll caveat that with, if Houston carries that on for 17 games, then hell yeah. But where we sit right now, I'd go St. Brown.
I'd actually say Malcolm. For similar reasons. He's on that rookie contract, so I'm on spot track. That's why I'm keep looking down. So yeah, Saul's on is 6% of our cap. Amon-Ra is about 0.5%. Malcolm is 0.4%, and he's a starting linebacker. I don't think he's there. He's better in terms of positional rankings than Amon-Ra and Saul, but in terms of to the dollar and what he's done to this linebacking core, it can't be replaced. You got to remember last year we had Barnes, we had Anzalone, we had Woods. We've brought in Chris Board, but all he's really done is play special teams. It's Malcolm who sort of come in and has solidified one of those roles and allowed Anzalone to calm down and just focus on his own thing. So for me, it's Malcolm.
I mean, there are honorary guys, I guess you could put in there. I mean, I guess we're all agreeing that the kicker's been a lot better this year in terms of what we're getting. And the only way you are a good kicker is if you've got a good long snapper to go with him as well. And we only pay.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh dear!
Technical difficulties, clearly.
I will not be silenced.
He silenced himself, and then he says he won't be silenced. Aleem McNeil's only on $1.1 million.
Yeah, Aleem's well up there for sure.
Yeah, Aleem for me would be the best value.
The other guy that deserves an honourable mention is probably Jonah Jackson, 3.2 million this year, and he's one of the best left guards in the NFL. Very underrated.
Yeah, that's going to be an awkward conversation in 12 months. Like, how much do you pay him? You've got Penne about to get paid. You've got Ragnow and Decker on massive deals. I mean, can we afford to pay him?
Probably
I don't know what.
So
I think we're going to struggle. I think that's why you have to draft a guard this year, because we've got to start getting younger and getting better contracts on the books, because they're going to start killing us eventually.
I mean, there's a chance that Jackson gets a contract this year, right? This offseason. He's on a 4-year deal as a third rounder. He's had 3 of them. That we may well wait until his contract is up, but it wouldn't surprise me if we did a deal this offseason.
I mean, what do you value it at? Howell's on. I know we've said it's a lot, and he was paid tackle money, but that's nigh 10 a year. You're going to be paying him towards 10, I think. We never talk about him, which is a good thing. I think he's that reliable glue there, where you kind of just forget about, because you know he'll do his job well. I think you have to pay him a lot, to be fair. I don't know what Spot Tracker would say, but
I'm just trying to look now because I'm actually not sure.
They don't have a market value up for him. I'm just looking through like all the big guard contracts. And
I mean, they're 15 million and above, right? You've got Nelson's kind of
20.
unique. Nelson 20, Jenkins 17, Scherf 16.5, Thurney 16, Batonio 16. So like, he might not be getting that, but he's not going to be far off. He's maybe at 12, 14, something like that. I was
about to say, he's definitely better than like Tomlinson, Pete, Glasgow,
right.
and they're getting 13.5, 4 like plus. So he's coming back there, which is a lot.
And I don't think we can afford that this year. So I reckon we'll have to wait till next year, but we're gonna have to pay him a lot. So
there's a lot. There's the problem with having good players. Suddenly,
I don't think
2 years time, we're gonna have to pay a lot of these guys.
And trench guys, we got a lot of trench guys. We're going to be paying. We'll pay Penne 1 year, then you'll pay Aiden the next, and that's when it becomes very difficult. So, I mean, that's why I want a running back so badly this year, because I think you've got to maximize your offensive line while you can pay it and keep it intact. But you've got to start drafting offensive linemen again to get the next crop of guys ready to save yourselves against the cap.
But then if we do re-sign him, and we only have 23 players under contract for 2024, but we have a projected cap space of 122.5 million. Now, we do need to sign 32 more players under that cap, but the majority of those will be $1 million a year players. Like, Vaitai will be off the books, Brockers will be off the books, there will be other people who have plenty of money off the books. Aquara, if he re-signs, is probably going to have a much lower cap number. Walker might be off the books. Jeff might be off the books. There's people with significant cap numbers, and we can get cheaper elsewhere. If we want to re-sign Jonah, we absolutely can. It depends whether it's a priority for this front office. Next question. Jamie Clark asked, if there were 2 players in the draft and you were told one was like Amon-Ra St. Brown and the other was like Jared Goff, which one would you pick?
Good question.
Oh, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sorry, there are.
That's where I would go.
There's lots and lots and lots of. Not say lots of. That's an exaggeration. There's quarterbacks like Jared Goff. There's no one like Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I would like to caveat that by saying I found my Amon-Ra St. Brown this year, and I reckon he is going to be. And if you doubt me, what was Reed Blankenship doing with the Eagles? Yes, I mean, everyone doubted. He went undrafted. I was banging the drum all last year. Here he is starting for a team that's going to the Super Bowl. So I like to think I've got a handle on some of these late guys now, but I think there's an Amon-Ra this year, and I think we'll get him.
So I'm a bit surprised that people or you guys wouldn't say Goff. I mean, if you're thinking of him as a top 10, top 15 quarterback, that's much more valuable than a top 10 receiver.
But we already have Goff.
No, sorry. I took the question to mean if you don't have either.
Oh, I see.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's why I was pausing for a bit, because I was like the same, because Goff is.
So say you're the Texans, basically. You're the Texans, and you can either draft this version of Jared Goff, to be clear, not like go through the 7 years. This version of Jared Goff or this version of Aaron St. Brown, who do you take? That's how I kind of understood the question, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think the thing about Amon-Ra is that he'll make limited quarterbacks look exceptionally good. For a bad team, Amon-Ra is amazing. And actually, I worry that Amon-Ra might be stunted as Detroit becomes good. I don't know whether that sounds weird or not, but I feel like as we hopefully threaten teams a bit more down the field, I don't know whether, maybe not stunt, but like I feel like statistically Amon-Ra will regress even if he's being just as effective because we'll be looking elsewhere.
I can see that because it isn't. It's not about St. Brown getting 1,500 yards. I mean, if he does, wonderful. But like his value to this team for me is you could pull together a pretty long YouTube reel of the third down conversions he's had to keep drives going, which lead to points, which lead to wins. And if you actually went back and went through those, I'd say it's a pretty strong argument. I think those will remain. But you're right. I think there's a world where his receptions come down, his yards come down over time because more is going on elsewhere as well.
But see, I think the league is transferring away from quarterbacks like Jared Goff, though. I mean, if you're talking about now the state we're in, would I draft him now for the future? Probably no, because that's not the sort of quarterback that the NFL is going to revolve around. It's going to be more on the dual threat. It's not going to be on the pure situational pocket pass guys. So then you have to kind of take that into consideration as well. I would rather have a guy who can, first and foremost, throw the ball, but use the legs if need be, because that adds just an extra wrinkle to your offense, especially this one. Could you imagine how crazy this offense would be with a talented dual threat running back on there? And I'm not saying for 1 second the L word. No, not in chance. I don't want him here. Full stop. But do want a guy in that mold in due course when Jared's time here is done, which hopefully is not for a while yet.
I think we might move on, but I'm going to have to drop, I'm afraid, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, though.
It has. You look very dapper. I love it.
Yeah,
and,
you too, man.
Thanks for coming on, and hopefully see you next week. Don't know if you're busy, but see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Cheers,
Take it easy, Tom.
See you in a bit.
Yeah.
All right, we got one more question left, guys, and it's by Ken Stauder, who's one of our bigger fans. Appreciate you, Ken. He asks, what position, if any, do you think may be picked twice in this draft by Detroit?
Corner.
Corner. Yeah, it's where I'm at
Corner.
too.
100% corner.
It can't be interior defensive line, I don't think. It's definitely not going to be edge. It could be linebacker. I could see double dipping at linebacker. It depends whether Anzalone comes back. If he doesn't come back, we need to. Can't see it being safety. Can't see it being wide receiver. Not O-line. Tight end? Ugh.
See, you say offensive line, but we need a guard and we need a swing tackle.
It's true.
The thing with corner, the corner class at the top is insanely talented. But if we don't double dip on if we've not double dipped by day 1 and 2, then we won't. Because I think the drop off's a lot bigger than other positions. And they say that the offensive line, the needs are not necessarily for starters. Swing tackle is not an obvious starter. It's just a rotational guy who can come in and help, and then guard. I think we need a guard. We do need a guard. Like I say,
We need a guard.
We've got. I do want Hal back next year. I'm not going to lie, but I do want a guard that we're going to invest in and is going to take over one of the 2 positions in the long run. Because, like I say, we need to start having long-term plans because the offensive line is going to cost too much money and it's going to screw us around, especially with contracts like when Amon-Ra's class comes up with Sewell, Amon-Ra, and McNeil, who's going to demand he's going to get big money. We've got to start making contingencies for that now.
No argument from me.
But I think offensive line's the double dip.
I don't. Because I think we've got our swing tackle sitting on the practice squad waiting to be called up next year.
I think Eze is a long way away if that's who you're talking about.
No, I think it is Eze. Because I know he had some issues in training camp, but we've seen what Fraley can do. We've seen what he can do with Matt Nelson, who was a defensive lineman when he came here, and he turned him into a reasonable swing tackle. Remember that game he had against Khalil Mack where he shut him down? Imagine what he could do with a guy who has been playing tackle for a while and has been sitting there on the practice squad all year, soaking up knowledge from Decker, from Saul, from Fraley, from Skip, who's been around. he could come out in training camp next year and win that swing tackle role next goodbye Matt Nelson.
I don't know what he's like at right tackle. You've got to play both tackle positions to a high degree, and his TCU days it was all left. So you kind of need a guy who could, if he can do both, great. But I wouldn't crown him as it yet until I know what he can do there.
Let me have a look and see if there was anything else. Jamie asks, I know that Ant's been ahead of the game with Devon Witherspoon. Everyone seems to like him now, but you were first on it. Daniel Jeremiah has the Lions taking him at 6. Is that too rich for you?
I was just replying to that, actually. I would ideally like to trade back from 6. If the D tackles are gone, then I would trade back and then grab him. But if we're forced to stay at 6 right now and the D tackles are gone, then I probably would. I really would. I just think scheme fit type of player he is. I don't really look at draft value with him. I get the guys who I know are going to come here and do a really good job for us. So I would, yes, if forced to stay at the position, but I would prefer to go back just a tiny bit. But yeah, I can live with him at 6, and I'll be quite happy with that.
When you say they're gone, do you mean like Jalen Carter?
Carter, and then to a degree, Breesy. I knocked him because of the injury history, and he's shown that is behind him. So I would kind of be on board with that, but mainly Carter. But I really like Devon, and I don't want to miss on him. So if I got to do it at 6, so be it.
Most people have got Carter at like 2 or 3.
Yeah, he's well gone. He's long gone. And I don't want to trade up for him either. I'm not wasting picks going for a D tackle. I'm sorry. I'll just go later in the draft and get someone.
But then some people are saying that, like, the Colts are going to move up for QB. Apparently the Colts, like, is it Levis?
Will Levis, yeah, the Kentucky one.
Yeah.
Hey, the propaganda's working.
Yeah, well, when PFF released their updated board, and they have him 3rd as their 3rd overall prospect now. It goes Young, Carter, Levis, Anderson.
Yeah, I don't think there's a world in which he slips unless he tests badly. Even then, he's got enough tape out there to disprove that. So if he's gone, then it's all aboard the Devon train.
Choo choo.
Choo choo.
Yeah, all aboard the Devon train. All right, I think, folks. Oh, hang on. One more question. Harley Quinn, if you boys could be on any team besides the Lions, which would you choose? Yeah. If you had to be a fan of another team, who would you choose?
North Carolina State, go Pack.
Or maybe another NFL team, if you had to.
Well, she didn't specify that, so I already am, but...
Anyone else?
I quite like to be in Bills Mafia. I quite like to be in the Bills. Like, if there was a gun to my head, like, that's probably the team I'd choose.
See, I feel like that would be a Scotsman's answer because of like going through tables and acting crazy and stuff like that. They'd fit in well there, wouldn't they?
Always snowing.
Always snowing. I mean, if it's NFL team, I'd say Bengals because I feel the Bengals, like us, would have a very passionate fan base who would be in it for the right reasons, who are used to dealing with crap, and they seem quite a good bunch, and I enjoy watching them do well. Kind of why I picked them for the Super Bowl, because I would rather them be there than any of the other pretenders in the AFC. So I think Bengals.
And they've got a quarterback who's like nearly as good as Jared Goff.
You know what? Dan Orlovsky said this earlier. I think Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in the NFL right now in terms of actually playing the position of quarterback. I know Mahomes is probably a better player with some of the stuff he knew, but I think in terms of quarterback fundamentals and everything, I think Joe Burrow's #1 right now. It's just a delight to watch him play the game.
No argument from me. If I had to choose an NFL team, I might. See, I've always been a big Bills fan. You guys know that. Like, I just enjoy the way they play the game. But I've got a bit of a soft spot for the Falcons as well, and I don't really know why. Like, I can't really
No.
put it into words, but I've always
Falcons
just
are
kind of liked them a bit.
Falcons are public enemy #1 round here.
Richie Grant.
Yeah, the Falcons are on the shit list. The Ravens are on the shit list. The Eagles are. You take my safeties in the draft, then you're public enemy #1. I'm sorry. I hate the Falcons. Just every time I see him play there, it's just like you're wasting him. And then I see Reed starting for the Eagles, and I'm just like, why? We could have had him. It upsets me.
Right, I'm going to take one more question and then I'm going to shut the show down. It comes from Twitch. It's Cool Down Rat, and he asked which position would he rather sign a vet rather than draft. And he said, I thought Detroit Rams was our second favourite team. To lose, maybe. Who do you want to sign in free agency position-wise?
Linebacker. No, I'm gone.
There's one, yeah.
Is this based on? Are we saying all the free agents have left, or?
It is a question in a vacuum. It can mean what you want it to mean.
In fact, no, I change. I say corner.
Yeah, I'm
one more young corner in the draft to mix with Jerry and Jeff, and a good vet. I think corner has to be prime. And who's the one everyone keeps mentioning? It's
Bradbury.
No, not Bradbury. There's another one who's out that I really like. Obviously, not much because I've forgotten, but yeah, it would be corner without a.
The target I have in free agency for corner.
Oh, Tremaine Edmonds. Is it Tremaine Edmonds? The Bills one?
Tremaine Edmonds is, yeah, maybe.
I think he's 24, isn't he? And they're not going to pay him.
Yeah.
I would 100% take Tremaine Edmonds in the blink of an eye. He fits us like a glove.
So the guy who is under contract at the moment, but I think is almost certain to get cut, is a Miami Dolphin, and is Byron Jones. And I would be very tempted by that.
I feel like has he not been a diva when he made his move there? I feel like he's been very overpaid and not lived up to his contracts, and I don't want those sort of players here again.
I think yeah, it's interesting because there's been turmoil in Miami, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So I don't know how much of it is on one side or the other. All I know is maybe he hasn't lived up to highest paid corner in the NFL, but he's a damn good player. And we need a CB vet to be CB1 and lead the way, and he could be that guy.
Isn't Jesse Bates up for free agency this season?
Yep.
I think so, yeah.
He was tagged, wasn't he, this year?
Yeah, but you're going to be paying him top dollar because they're going to the Super Bowl potentially again. You're going to be paying him. You're going to break the market for him probably. So I don't know if we can be. Mind you, I don't know what Tremaine Edmonds' valuation. I imagine that will be high, but
I think Ash is Googling it right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I was going to say, avoid. I'm going to be against Jesse Bates. As much as he's good, you'd be benching my guy Kirby, and I cannot accept that at all. Market value for Tremaine Edmonds is 11 mil a year. So Spot Track has him at 4 year, 44 mil, which has him seventh in terms of inside linebackers.
I'd pay that. I think I genuinely would. If I could get Anzalone back cheap enough, I would. I think we need that impact guy there, and it's proven that we need an impact guy there. And you are not going to get a 24-year-old like who's just going to get better and better and better. They ain't going to hit the market that often. So I'd take him for that.
Right, I'm going to draw it to a close here, folks, because I still need to edit this thing. Thank you to you all for your company. You guys on Twitch, I'm going to raid you over to Chris Perfett, starting up for the Pride of Detroit podcast now. So if you're on Twitch, hang tight while we go over there and raid. And Steve, Ash, thanks for joining me for the best day of the year. And see you later for the college show or next week.
Awesome show, guys.
Interview.
Great to see you.
Au revoir.
Cheers.
Au revoir.
Bye. Right, raiding in 10 seconds on Twitch before I end the stream.
Don't forget to tell them to sub so they get the pod Roar of the Lions UK joint karaoke.